Evening, everybody. Welcome. This is the Community Consolidated School District 46 Board of Education meeting for March 15th, 2023. We're here at Frederick School. I need a call to order and a roll call, please.
Weedman.
Here.
Mack.
Here.
Braden.
Here.
Albert.
Here.
LaCroix.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
And Nash.
Here.
Okay. That gives us a quorum. If we can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Need a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Would like to make two quick changes. One, we have to include the personnel addendum that came this afternoon, and we have a request to move the community cafe to the top of the list under unfinished business.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Miller.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
Albert.
Aye.
Weedman.
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
LaCroix.
Aye.
And Nash.
Aye.
Okay. We're up to the public comments portion of this evening. Remind you, just a general reminder, we have a time limit of 4 minutes for the public commentary. If you want to say who's up. You can introduce yourself, and
Yes.
that'd be appreciated.
Liz Wixer, a little taller than the last person who spoke. So I just have, hopefully brief. Dr. Glickman and school board members and other admin staff. On February 21st, I participated in the community cafe held at Park School. It was an electric event to be able to hear from so many community members how important the outdoor spaces of our schools are, not only to students and staff, but to the entire community who live, work, and play in and around these natural resources entrusted to the district. We are fortunate to exist in a community that places such a high value on natural spaces, setting aside things like Central Park, the forest preserves, the new green space the village of Grayslake purchased off of Center Street, building cycling networks that continue to expand, supporting places like Prairie Wind Farms through educational collaborations with D127, or the Living Lab Trail at CLC. Not only do we use our outdoor spaces in the community for recreation and stress relief, but they are also an important educational resource as well, especially the land owned by D46. When I found out on Friday that Wold Architects and Engineers was in the process of assessing the district's buildings, I wanted to learn whether they had the expertise needed to assess not only our buildings, but our outdoor environments as well. I was excited to learn that Wold is an AIA 2030 commitment participant. The buildings contribute approximately 40% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. The 2030 commitment is a pledge made by architectural firms to reach a goal of 100% carbon neutral buildings by 2030, measured as all new buildings and major renovation projects. Because Wold is an AIA 2030 commitment participant, they have access to design resources that can help our district to do the following: establish an energy use intensity baseline and goal that would allow us to measure the impacts of various decisions on energy efficiency of our buildings over time, help us assess low and no cost passive design strategies for future improvements or maintenance to achieve higher energy efficiency. This would help us make decisions in the future with regard to building maintenance or improvements. Integrate energy efficient technology and systems. These can include suggestions for both the built environment, such as the newly installed HVAC monitoring system, or permeable asphalt for pavement replacement projects like the one recently installed by Lake County Department of Transportation, and landscaping solutions such as low or no-mow grass, tree placement and replacement, and low maintenance native beds. One of the other things they can do is incorporate on-site and off-site renewable energy options when considering system replacement, maintenance, or upgrades. And finally, they can use iterative energy modeling to assess how different design decisions will affect progress towards EUI goals. The Community Cafe experience emphasized for me how important sustainability and responsible stewardship of outdoor resources are to our community. As we learn more about the current conditions and needs of our built infrastructure, we also need to keep in mind the condition and needs of our outdoor and natural spaces as well, and how the land entrusted to the district, not only the buildings, is used to support community goals regarding education, community use, and safety. Working with engineering professionals involves not only listening to their technical advice, but clearly articulating the values we have that underpin our decision-making as a community. As a former engineer, that's something that I'm very familiar with. We must be good stewards not only of our money, but our time, our health, and our environment. That our children's children have the same opportunities to explore the woods in Central Park, to grow food at Prairie Wind Farm, to do the camp out at Frederick for years to come, swim in Grays Lake, explore Mill Creek, and imagine shapes into the clouds at recess at every school. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to the April 3rd meeting with Wold.
Thank you. Do we have any others? Adam, you got another one?
None.
Nope. Okay. Helps if I turn the microphone on. We are up to board reports. Jessica?
First of all, I want to say congratulations to all the students in their recent achievements. Science Olympiad teams, musical, a play coming up at GMS. Park last weekend had a musical. I want to give a shout out to Mrs. Foster and Miss Dalton at GMS and the directors at Park, Mrs. Tiojanko, Mrs. Nelson, and Miss Huber. Hopefully I've pronounced your names correctly. All the concerts that we've had, I really had fun listening and seeing Mr. Detweiler do his triangle solo last week. All the solo and ensemble performances, jazz and concert band contests coming up, all the artwork on display at the library, and the sports teams. March has been busy, and we have such a vibrant school district community, and it's been so exciting to see what all these students are doing in all of their activities. And so I just want to give a shout out to all that, highlighting the academics, the healthy movement, and the arts. And then lastly, I wanted to mention that the CEC met last night, had a very robust discussion about the days in May that the PTOs help provide. Imagination Day, Discovery Day, Exploration Day. It has multiple names across the community, but these volunteers put a lot of planning and coordination as well as the implementation of these activities, and just want to make sure they're appreciated for that. Thank you.
Jason? Christine?
Wanted to echo everything. Thank you for that. That's so true. There's so much amazing stuff going on. And I'll add that one of the ways we know there's so much amazing stuff going on is because our social media presence has been on point. So thank you for all the different buildings that I know are now working on their social media sites and on their school websites. We went to a Illinois Association of School Boards dinner a couple weeks ago, last week. And the speaker talked about how to tell your school's story. And one of the things that I felt was amazing was that as she was talking about making sure that all the wonderful positive stories that are happening in our schools are in the public discourse, I was thinking about how we were just starting to do that ourselves. And it was really cool to then, just over the last couple of weeks, see that really amp up. And just really appreciate that extra effort to get those stories out so that people can see them and be really proud of them. So thank you.
Steven?
I don't have much to add. Both my colleagues have encompassed a lot of that story very well. I had the opportunity to go to several of the concerts and the competitions happening with the jazz and the solo ensembles. Congratulations to Mr. Thomas and all the team there as well. We had some amazing successes from our wrestling team as well. Congratulations to them, and this is a busy month for our story. Congratulations.
Thank you. I don't know what else to say there. Yeah. The only thing I have, just as a point of information for the public, is we did deliver, Dr. Mack and I did deliver our superintendent evaluation at the end of February, as we are statutorily required to do. I think everything went well there with everybody's comments for her evaluation, and we did deliver it to her on the 28th, 27th. So that's all I had to add. And she's still here. I don't know how to respond to that.
Moving right along.
Christy?
So as everyone said, it is a really busy time. I have lots of thank yous. So first of all, I wanted to thank the lovely cast and crew. I'm sure we've all seen these. But we got handwritten invitation to the glass slippers. So break a leg to the cast and crew, which of course I mean good luck. So thank you for that. And thank you to Mr. Halprin and his staff. He'll hear more about the community cafe, but Mr. Halprin, on his birthday no less, got our area set up. His staff was super helpful with that, so thank you to that. Thank you to Mr. Malamed and Mrs. Payleitner for their help, again with facilities and technology. Wanted to thank Dr. Glickman for your support, very much appreciate that, and for attending, and then to Leslie for all the support for flyers and media presence, so, and for your photography of the evening. So thank you for that. Thank you also to our community members who showed up and contributed their gifts. Liz Wixer, Jody Sinkmars, Paul Schumacher, Kylie Albeck, and Patricia Baking were wonderful. They worked since December to help us organize that cafe. Just wanted to shout out to them. As Jess said, the CEC was busy, has been busy. We met last night. Our food drive was a success, very consistent with the past ones. We had several carloads full of food. Food was donated from every school, so thank you to residents who donated food to help us feed hungry people. And then Jess mentioned Discovery Days, Adventure Days, Imagination Days. It depends on the school, but they are looking for workshop leaders. So if anyone has a skill, a special thing that's not related to food, we are definitely looking for some people to share their talents and gifts with our kiddos. Wanted to let you know that there's a new piece of legislation that's out for living schoolyards. It's called the Living Schoolyards Act. The Martin Heinrich from New Mexico, who's a senator, proposed this bill. I'm just going to read the actual language. It says, outdoor learning spaces grants prioritize the creation of outdoor classrooms and learning spaces, including the installation of canopies, tents, open-sided structures, electricity generators, furniture storage, Wi-Fi nodes and charging stations, outdoor food and distribution facilities, gardens, and weather-related clothing. So just might want to keep an eye on that, because that might be a grant opportunity for us to support the work that we're doing. And then also just wanted to offer condolences to the O'Leary family. Attended Delaney's funeral and was so grateful to live in a district where so many staff showed up. So thank you, and again, condolences to their family. That's it.
Tamika?
All right, well, I am thunderless after we've covered the room,
I'll start at your end next time.
but I will echo the personalized invitation for the GMS glass slipper performance coming up later this week. That was really awesome and special to receive in the mail. And then I think we've all heard going around the room about just how much has been done in the district and within the schools, activities, sports clubs, et cetera, throughout this first quarter of the year. And I just want to give a big shout out to our principals, our school administrators, the teachers, the staff, paraprofessionals, because everybody leans in to make this come together. So we get the output of the kids doing well and being awesome and amazing, but it's because of the support and guidance that you all provide them on a day-to-day basis that this ever becomes a reality here in our district. So thank you.
Okay. And we now up to the superintendent report.
Well, I want to start by welcoming some guests today. We have a whole bunch of students here from, is it both Central and North, or are you all Central? All Central? Well, we're really glad you're here. We know that you're here for an assignment. We get it, but we're glad you're here. And I wanted to point out that along with these students, we also have with us tonight a School District 46 social work intern and one of our student teachers. And high school students, I wanted to let you know that one of these ladies is also here for an assignment, because in grad school, she's required to come to a board meeting and ask a bunch of questions. So the learning continues, and I just wanted to let you know that. We're really glad you're here. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Woke, who has a couple of topics to share.
Sure, thank you for that lead-in, because I'm going to talk about the pipeline. And it's great that we have a student teacher and a social work intern here, because they'll be ready next year to join us. But I have two things I wanted to share. You may have seen on social media that 2 weeks ago we had a teacher shadow day along with District 127, where we had 9 students from the 2 high schools come over and shadow our teachers for a day. These are individuals who have an interest in becoming elementary school teachers in the future. And so a couple of our teachers were willing to allow them to share, shadow, and actually participate in some of the activities that they're doing in their classrooms. To follow up with this, we actually have one of the students who wants to come back and do some more time in the classroom with the teacher that she worked with. So that's a great first step. Also, to go along with that, that's addressing the high school students and trying to get them into our profession. Last week, you may have seen on our social media posts that I got to attend CLC again. I did this in the fall. We worked with a teacher over there, and he and I have somehow got connected, and so we're working together. Last semester, I went in solo and talked to these 2 classes. This time, I took some people who had a lot more fun things to say than I do. So joining me last week was Stephanie Nicoletti, the media specialist at Avon, and Katie O'Brien, our teacher on special assignment, who works with mentoring. We visited the Intro to Education course and the Educational Psychology course. And follow-ups with that are that yesterday I met with a young lady who wants to become a paraprofessional and then work her way into teaching. And she's bilingual, and I told her all of the routes that we could go with that. And so we're putting a plan in place to try and get her on board. If not this year, definitely for next year. And then also one of those students that I met with actually graduated with her bachelor's degree was in psychology, and now she wants to become a school psych. So we are having her come in and visit with some of our school psychs, and hopefully trying to, it's a long process, that's a master's degree that you'll have to go through, but hopefully we can sink our hooks in early and get her back here after she's done.
Thank you. Dr. Diaz and Mr. Wildman have something to share.
Yeah, so Mr. Wildman and I had the opportunity to present at NAVE, which is the National Association of Bilingual Education, and we went to Portland through February 21st through 25th. We presented on Thursday of that week, and we focused on how to create a dual language program, best practices, and then the financial considerations. And then I presented again on Saturday with neurodiverse students who are also monolingual or bilingual, so it's pretty neat. And we also attended a lot of different conferences such as translanguaging. We also went to newcomers and refugees and asylees, and then parent participation, and it was really nice. We also got to experience Portland had 10 inches of snow, and it literally stopped all public transportation and a lot of different things. So we got to learn how different cities take care of infrastructure and not have infrastructure for snow. It was a really good time.
Thank you. I want to just add in a really interesting element of that experience that these two administrators had. Mr. Wildman came back and talked about how fascinating it was to him to go to a conference that is outside of what he typically does. So I believe you were the only school business official there, correct?
I believe I was the only CSBO presenting in the entire conference, correct?
Well, and even there.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
And we started cooking up the idea that perhaps in the future, when we all go to our conferences, our own niche conferences, we need to bring a friend. So we're talking about that, right? You know, right now I just go to superintendent conferences. Perhaps next year I should also go to special ed. So that kind of a conversation. So it was really interesting, and so thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being a part of it. All right, and I have information to share about 2 upcoming opportunities for our community to become involved in thoughts about our school district. I have a lot to share, so forgive me. I'm going to be reading a little bit more than usual because I don't want to miss anything. Over the past few months, as you know, Wold, our architecture firm, has been walking our schools and meeting with district staff all over to gather data and information about our buildings. And we are now at a point where we're ready to involve the community. So on April 3rd, and we had public comment about April 3rd, so thank you about that, we are going to ask our community to participate in a community meeting where we'll be reviewing the educational adequacy of our buildings and grounds and have the opportunity to add to the discussion ultimately. So Wold, our architecture firm, is going to be holding this remotely so that as many people as possible can be involved. People don't have to leave their homes and come to a meeting. It will also be recorded and posted on our website because we know that people are busy and may not be able to be there. But at that meeting, they will be sharing important information about all aspects of schools, the physical plans of schools, including physical conditions, capacity and enrollment, safety and security, educational alignment, so how the spaces accommodate the many ways that we teach, and activities and community use, so how the buildings are used outside of school hours. The presentation will review both current condition and as well as areas where we might have future considerations. So we have already shared that information via school newsletters and will continue to do so. This week we'll also be sending something out district-wide versus via our Infinite campus, as we often do, along with posting it on our website on the superintendent's message. So we want as many people as possible to be involved in that. And speaking of considering the needs of our school district, as you know, we have been discussing for quite a while now that as the burden of taxpayer debt will be coming off the tax rolls in November of 2025, we're going to have the unique opportunity to have more funds available to us for what we need for our buildings, programs, community, and most importantly, our students. Because as we've been discussing in our finance committee meetings and right here in these meetings, an opportunity will exist that includes bringing a referendum to our taxpayer, a referendum question to our taxpayers. And even with a referendum passing, taxes could still be lowered for our taxpayers because it would happen after the current debt rolls off. So we'd like to move forward with a public information program that will start before this school year ends. We want to think about a proposal that would appear or could appear on a ballot in 2024. We'll be creating a citizen task force to discuss the needs of the district and consider a proposal that will meet our needs. And we want to start early to get a feel for what the task force thinks about proposals so that we can use the time in the summer to hit the ground running in the fall. So kind of preliminary work this spring, bringing Citizens Task Force together to hear about what our needs are and talk about what proposals might be. We work intensely over the summer, and then we are really ready to get moving in the fall. So there's a wide variety of business leaders that we need for this task force that will meet twice this spring, once in May and once, well, spring and summer, once in May and once in June. We need civic leaders, seniors, persons who are tied to government but are not elected officials. We need realtors, we need commercial bankers and other financial professionals, we need insurance professionals, healthcare professionals, faith-based leaders, HOA reps, former elected officials, former District 46 board members, and former employees of District 46, PTO, PTF leadership. We need all of these folks together so we can think about it together. So we would like the board's help of thinking of any people that you could recommend that might be a part of this task force that, again, will meet once in May and once in June, and then again sometime in the fall. If you do have names to share, please bring them to me directly, and we're really excited to get the process started and begin involving our public. And my last topic is about celebrating activities, which has been greatly celebrated here by our board, so thank you for that. Later on this evening, you're going to be hearing about updates about our strategic goals. And during that time, Mrs. Gluck at one point will be talking about all the curriculum work that's happened this year, and that's mostly about what happens during the school day. But as we've been talking about tonight, there's an awful lot that happens outside the school day that is very immeasurably important for our students in our community. People talked about the music and the art shows, Frozen at Park, Cinderella that's coming up at GMS. All of the performing ensembles that we have are advancing to the Illinois Grade School State Music Festival, and that's going to be held on Saturday, April 29th. Park Campus 8th grade girls basketball team won their conference championship. They finished their season undefeated last week. We've invited that group of people to come to our April board meeting to be celebrated. We're also celebrating our wrestlers in April. They had an undefeated regular season. And so they're going to be coming from, and that's a joint group of GMS, Park Campus, and Frederick. And let's not forget the Science Olympiad. Teams from Frederick, GMS, and Park are going to state. And that tournament is held on Saturday, April 22nd at U of I. So they're going to Champaign, which is really exciting. And I will end with this. If anybody doubts the importance and the value of learning with a team, whether it's a sports team, whether it's a team of people that you are on stage with, whether it's a bunch of people creating a project and displaying it, if anyone doubts that, the 3rd season of Ted Lasso just dropped today on Apple. And watch it from season 1 to season 3, and you will understand the value of all of that work because it makes a difference in people's lives. And that ends the superintendent's report.
Okay. Excuse me. Next, we need an approval for a motion to approve the consent agenda and the addendum to the personnel report as well.
So moved.
I'll second.
Braden,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye. Are we doing a short break after this? That's what I thought. Okay. Next, we're on to action items. I need a motion to approve Mary Murphy as the new assistant principal here at Frederick School.
So moved?
Second.
And I believe we have someone here to talk about Mrs. Murphy. Yeah? That's
Yep,
you.
that'd
It's
be
all
me.
you. All you, Mr. Goshi.
Yeah,
Over to the mic, my friend.
you get a new job, she gets a new job, you get to talk.
Everybody gets a new job.
All right, so I'm excited to be here tonight. It feels like just yesterday I was here, but it was actually 3 months ago now. So one of the biggest things that I was tasked to do upon assuming the principal role at Frederick School was beginning the search for the person who would fill my spot. We went through a very extensive process. In total, we had 49 applicants who were subjected to 4 different rounds of interviews. It was really, truly wonderful to be able to meet so many qualified candidates, and we were lucky to have that position. But in the end, when it came down to it, we were able to find someone who has the right mix of experience we're looking for, who knows our district, who has done great things to work with the students at both Prairie View and Grays Lake Middle School, and I couldn't be happier to have Mary Murphy join us at Frederick. So super excited to welcome her to our building next year, and I know she's going to do great things. So just wanted to share that. Congratulations, Mary.
Ready?
Yep.
Weedman,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
and Albert.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to take a very short break. If you hadn't seen it on the way in, there is cake back there. We like to celebrate with cake whenever we do things like this. So, and then everybody in the audience even gets cake, which means there's less to take home. So we'll take about a 5-10 minute break. Oh, 1 second. You good? Okay. Okay. All right, we are back from our short break and cake. The next item we have on our action items would be a motion to approve the contract renewal with Forward Edge for managed cybersecurity systems, or services, sorry.
So moved?
Second.
Can we elaborate a little bit on that, Christopher?
Yeah, absolutely. So last year, in January of 2022, the district issued an RFP for managed cybersecurity services. That was based on recommendations by our insurance provider, the Collective Liability Insurance Cooperative, that changed the parameters of cybersecurity insurance. February 16th, 2022 regular board meeting, this board approved a one-year contract with Forward Edge of Cincinnati, Ohio, in the amount of $79,625. That included a $5,500 one-time network infrastructure assessment. The renewal, as presented in the board packet, is for $63,011, so it's a decrease for the same scope of services. We're pleased with what we've been provided by Forward Edge, and we hope to continue the relationship.
Okay. Any questions? Pretty straightforward.
One point of clarification, this is more than just a recommendation, it was a requirement, right, from our insurance collective?
It was actually a prerequisite for cybersecurity insurance.
Right, thanks.
Okay.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Okay. Next is a motion to approve the cell tower lease agreement with Verizon Wireless at Park Campus. This is a project that went into place for the district in 2015. The board at that time was looking for a way to increase revenues inside the district. We had some land out at Park Campus, and we were able to lease space out there for a cell tower. This is a continuation of that contract for the next 5 years, and it does have a provision to increase the revenue each year from that. So I need a motion to approve that lease.
So moved.
Second.
Albert,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye. Okay. Next one is a motion to approve the board policies that are listed there. I have had a couple of requests to remove policy 6:260 and send it back to the policy committee for additional discussion and review. So I need a motion to approve all the board policies listed with the exception of 6:260.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mack,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Okay. That finishes our action items. Next is our unfinished business, and the first one will be the discussion on the community cafe.
So we're gonna hear from Katie Wixer, and Katie is attended the community cafe, and she prepared a presentation, and then Jess and I will follow with what happened and kind of what we're learning from the notes. But Katie's gonna start us off.
Hello, my name is Catherine Wixer. I'm a student at Frederick and I'm interested in spending time outside. Outdoor spaces could could help students, some of the ways that we could go outside and study are using the following: using the picnic tables during enrichment, doing homework club outside, and having some outdoor lunch periods. Eventually, I hope to get to the point where we will have outdoor classrooms at schools. Some positive effects are it will be easier to focus, it can make us have a positive emotion, and it can have health benefits such as fresh air and sunshine. Outdoor recess should always be an option, and we should get time to take off our gear. Some people would say that it takes time off school, but if we don't get all that energy out of our system, it could be harder to concentrate anyway. Also, if we get to go outside and are allowed to get muddy and are allowed to take risks, we can learn and be happier. Here's a quote from the International School Grounds Alliance. Risk-taking opportunities are an essential component of a well-functioning school ground. Adults and institutions have a responsibility to use common sense in providing and allowing risk-taking activities for children and young people. Some of my ideas for risky play are to be able to build and pick up sticks, play with snow, and climb trees. Thank you for your time. And Miss Albert and Miss Christie are here to talk about the community cafe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And let's see, is our slide presentation ready? Yes, there we go. All right, so as you know, we had a special board meeting on February 21st, and this was the fourth time that there was a community cafe style meeting since Dr. Mack and Christy Miller and Mrs. Miller started the Community Engagement Committee. You'll see there students and parents helped contribute to some artwork to welcome the attendees to the cafe. Next slide. In the months prior, many stakeholder groups were identified and invited, and you may remember we had some conversations about that at these tables here. You'll notice there are school influencers. That includes us because we are board members, we make decisions, we vote. It could also include PTO leaders. They're also making decisions and working with the principals about where dollars may go that they raise. Connectors are people who connect the dots, connect people and ideas, and know people probably in a variety of stakeholder groups. Next slide, please. So who was there? We had about 45 to 50 total participants, which was a great outpouring of involvement, community engagement. And a number of known partners of our schools showed up, and you can see a lot of them here. CEDAL, Lake County Board, D127 Board, parents and residents, students, even Village of Grays Lake trustees. It was, and actually a lot of staff too. So it was wonderful to have so many people there to be part of these conversations. Next slide, please. At the beginning of the cafe, Christy reminded the group, or explained to the group, about how we work together. And you may remember this graphic from the past. It's been a little updated. She also, next slide, showed the funnel. You may remember we talked about this and we all laughed about it. Luckily, an artist was able to improve this graphic as well. And also Christy had gone over cafe etiquette, setting social norms about how we can be active listeners and generate dialogue together that night. And I want to thank artist Emma Wimberly, who did these graphics and created something that was an output of that evening. The next slide, please. So then next, after she introduced those graphics I just shared with you, there came 4 rounds of conversation in groups of 4 to 6 people sitting at the tables, and a person at each table took the role of reporter and summarized what was said by the group, what was conversed about during those 15, 20 minutes or so of each round of questions. Then, as the reporter spoke, everybody in attendance was invited to wave their hands, their fingers, or flash their phone lights if something really resonated with them about what they heard. And so that way, the visual artist who was there could note, oh, a lot of people are excited by this, or that resonates with them. And that's then what she wound up putting in that board over there that we will display later. Other ways that we gathered info, we had welcome cards at the beginning of as people walked in. There were butcher papers, what am I starting to say? Long pieces of butcher paper on the tables, and then Post-its, and people could write, doodle, whatever they wanted as we all conversed in these 4 rounds. There were BenQ boards featured that showed similar themes from the past community cafes, like how this all leads into together to show the values and beliefs of the community. And then to follow that, we had stakeholder interviews, and we thought about who wasn't in the room that night, and we reached out to people to make sure we're hearing from all those different people. And I'll pass it on to Christy now.
So the actual visual notes are over in the back on foam board, and they're also projected. And really this is the rendition of what we were talking about as the visual note taker heard us. And so I wanted to go through a little bit of what we're learning from not only these visual notes, but then also some of the pieces of information that we gathered along the way, which is still ongoing. So when we looked at these visual notes, what we're looking at is a piece of art. It was truly amazing to watch her in the moment draw what we were talking about and synthesize it visually. And when we're looking at a piece of art, one of the first questions that my art teacher taught me a long time ago was what takes up the most space and what's not included. So after staring at this in my bedroom for a very long time, we're looking at words like policy. It comes up in 3 different spaces. And that's in blue. So you'll notice some of the major themes were blue. The questions themselves are represented by the green letters. So we looked at what matters now, how might we improve and maintain our current spaces and design and construct them. And then the third piece of this was, what are our aspirations for the future? So what this can tell us as a board is, what do we value, what does our community value, and what does our community aspire to? So when we're looking at what words take up the most space, what words repeat, we saw policy in all 3 of those green areas. They came up multiple times. We saw safety and signage. Signage came up a lot. Our people want signs. They want to know when they can use their outdoor spaces and what things are, at least that night. We heard there are some version of partnerships or community came up in all 3 rounds of conversation. Accessibility and inclusivity came up all 3 rounds of conversation. And we also heard a lot of verbs. I was paying attention to those like partner, engage, interact, create, address, relax, and regulate. So I don't think it's going to be a surprise to us, but it was nice to see it visually. Then we took a look at images. So all of those black and white figures that are amazing, they're doing something. They're sitting and running and digging and climbing and high-fiving and relaxing and talking. That is telling to us on how our community, at least this group of our community, wants to use those spaces. And again, this was what the visual note taker, who doesn't live here, she lives in Chicago, so this is a neutral person, is hearing in the conversation that night. We also, as she was listening, heard a lot of talk about trees, and if you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner, that tree has a lot of arrows, which means there were a lot of different ideas that came from the concept of planting trees, and oak trees came up in particular a few times in the written notes. Gardens, the acorns, again, signs, a magnifying glass looking at the monarch butterflies, and street lights. Our people want lights. So that was just the kind of meat and the potatoes of our discussion, which again, the visual note taker, a neutral party, was listening to and just is reflecting back to us. And it's something we can keep and hold on to. Next slide, please. We also did, next one, please. We also we had welcome cards, so when people walked in, they could take a card and write down 3 words or phrases that describe outdoor learning spaces in your mind. This was intentional to try to figure out, when we say outdoor learning spaces, what are people thinking about? And we created a word cloud, and again, word clouds, the word that is largest is the word that came up most often. So I transcribed all of those cards, and those larger words, again, came up. So we're starting to see some patterns. If you remember, the verbs and the pictures showed people wanting to engage in those outdoor spaces, and we're seeing that in this word cloud as well. We see community coming up, apparently hands, not feet, but hands come up, sustainability, educational, and health. So again, I don't think this is crazy outside what we are hearing in other spaces too, but that's telling. Next slide, please. Did the same thing for this question, which was a practice round of conversation when we were sitting in small groups. But again, what I asked was, describe a texture, smell, sound, and or image that delights you when you're outside. This gives us a sense of the aesthetic values of what people want when they're in those outside spaces. And birds came up and water came up quite a bit. So it might be interesting to just keep that in mind as we're making decisions when the options come in later from the architect. Last slide, please. Thank you. So what's next? We're still in the middle. I've spent the last couple weeks transcribing all of the Post-its and all of the taking pictures of all the images and creating a list of all that. Those lists we can synthesize. Also looking at all the other inputs from the cafe itself, but also from the stakeholder interviews. So there's one of the questions we like to ask ourselves is who's not in the room. And so when we answer that, we looked at those stakeholder groups that Jess talked about, and we created a stakeholder guide that had all those questions, the 4 questions, and we went, let me back up. There are 4 questions, one of them is different. And when we go through that, we can highlight that difference. But it's all about outdoor learning. So those stakeholder interviews have been ongoing. Liz Wixer is going to synthesize all of the records that we get from that, but we're still waiting to collect a few. And one of the groups that we noticed that was not well represented were our elders in our community, people who have been around a long time and have a lot of wisdom to share. So they have invited me to join their exercise class tomorrow. And I will be going to their exercise class and conducting a group interview with the exact same questions just to get their input. But I can tell you, one of them contacted me early and wants level paths. She's very concerned about tripping hazards on our paths, which I hadn't thought of. So I think that's just all good information to have when we go into making decisions. And then the last step will be to share what we're learning and what this generates to you. But the last question is, why are we doing this? So can you forward one more slide, please? So you know that I care deeply about outdoor learning spaces and sustainability. I don't think that has been a secret. But what I care even more about is that we create spaces for dialogue. And so regardless of what we talk about, just engaging our community is the point of what we're doing. And that's reflected in our mission statement, empowering all learners, not just students, but we were intentional about that. Everyone who wants to learn, we want to engage with them. We want to create equity. So when we do stakeholder interviews, it's not about generating a momentum around a certain topic. It's about creating a process whereby we intentionally go to people who are invested in our community and gather their input and bring it back to the board. It's reflected in our vision statement, in which we want to expand learning so that all learners grow locally and connect globally and excel universally. So that idea of growing and connecting and excelling, these processes bring that out. And then our policy in particular that we just approved that Community engagement is a process that the board uses to actively involve diverse citizens in dialogue, deliberation, and collaborative thinking around common interests for the district's schools. So looking at, this is reflected in our mission and vision and in our policy already. And it can be, this process can be applied to any part of a strategic plan as we see fit as a board. So something to think about later is, do we want, when is it warranted and when is it not? So that is what happened at the cafe, and these Post-its are taking a very long time, and I will tell you one is missing because my dog literally ate it. So very sorry to the person whose thought will not be expressed, but with a green Post-it in her mouth. So, so we'll share more as we learn, but wanted to give you an idea of what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just have a couple of big thank yous to Mrs. Albert and Mrs. Miller for putting this together, because I think this distillation really helps me to understand if I wasn't clear before about how this work was going to inform what we needed to do in the future as we thought about and contemplated our, the spaces work that we're going to be doing with Wold. It does now. It's clear to me, and I appreciate you doing that in this way. Very good work. Thank you. And a big thank you to Catherine Wixer, too. Thank you so much. Great job on your presentation. I also wanted to here tonight testify that this is something that you do very much believe in. Catherine is my next door neighbor, and I see Catherine living this ethic every day outside, rain, sleet, snow. She loves her outdoor spaces. She loves to play hard. And thank you for coming tonight and sharing your story with us.
And you know what, I'm just going to add one thing. I meant to say this earlier. The design work that we did was based, I think it's important to give credit where credit is due. That design is based on, it's a modified what's called a World Cafe, and that was created by Juanita Brown, who did her doctoral dissertation in World Cafe. So that was not my own design, it was a modified version of it.
Tamika?
Yeah, excellent job with the presentation all around, Katie, Ms. Albert, Mrs. Miller. My question is there a plan to share at any level with Wold some of the things that came out of this?
So both Mr. Eichhorn and Mr. Vaughn were at the cafe, and they were talking with our people. And we sent them the digital version of that. And so how they use it, I think, will be up to us, but it's been shared with them. Yeah.
Anyone else? No? Okay, thank you very much. Next item is sustainability initiatives update.
Strategic goals.
No, I messed it up. So we're going to actually go over the update to the strategic goals. You're supposed to hit me upside the head when I mess up.
Next time.
I would, but I can't reach.
Next time.
You had one job.
She hit me like 3 times already today, so.
I was praising you at that time, too. So well done.
Waiting for one more partner. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Good evening. Tonight we are going to be sharing information about where we are this school year with our strategic goals. As you know, board, back in, I believe it was June, we shared with you our plan for the year. And here we are 3/4 of the way through fiscal year 23. And so I think we've discovered we are at least 3/4 of the way through our goal task work. We're going to share with you where we are tonight, and then in June, we'll come back and let you know what we did in the last quarter of the year, along with sharing what our plans are for the next school year. always looking at our mission, and absolutely you will see that these goals and our work regarding these goals deals with every single one of these topics: empowering learners, creating equity, and cultivating community. And I'm going to hand this over to Mrs. Gluck, who's going to talk about curriculum.
Thanks. Good evening. I have a lot to share. There's been a lot of work going on here. So as we look at, there are two curriculum goals. The first is that the overarching of this is that we are reviewing and updating teaching, learning, and assessment practices and materials through an equity lens to create culturally responsive learning environments. So the first column on there is our equity audit work, and you remember back on February 1st, we came and we shared with you our equity action plan, which was created by our district equity leadership team in DELT. And so that work, we spent, as you know, a lot of time developing that, and we have actually started, you'll notice for next year under there is implement EAP, that implementation has already started. So if you remember, we have an 18-month implementation period with that EAP, and so we've already started that this school year and we'll continue into next school year. As we look at understanding cultural responsiveness, we have spent some time with our staff also as a result of EAP, or as a result of DELT through the EAP, looking at culturally responsive practices and starting to have some conversation with our staff at staff meetings and starting to do some professional development around that topic. We are still having conversation about how we're going to continue to do that with the school community, so that is something that we will share with you as we come back later on in June, May? June. And then understanding trauma-informed instruction. You know we've been working with Dr. Bolton all year, and so this has been a lot of work that we've done since August. Dr. Bolton came and did our opening institute day. He has done several of our late starts, as well as several of our staff meetings, and he is continuing to do that. So we have two more. He's been recording for us. It's very hard to get him in person for all of our staff at once. So he has been recording for us, and we have two more that we will be doing this school year. And then in addition to that, he did Parent University earlier this year, and so that was where he also provided some support and, for building awareness within our school community. Curriculum review is a big one. And as you know, last year you approved, at the end of last school year, you approved our new literacy resources for this school year. So there has been a lot of work related to professional development for implementation of both Scholastic and My Perspectives. As we work through that, we have had some releases. We have done some work through our Job Alike teams during late start, and we are continuing to do that through job-embedded coaching and support within the classrooms, as well as during some of our building and team time. So our instructional coaches have been an absolute support for our teachers in this area as we continue to implement that. And we have also been looking at that new and utilizing the new health resource that you approved at the end of last school year. And so that is being used aligned with the Illinois standards, and our health teachers have been working on that during Job Alike to make sure that they have been learning further about that. Our social science PDT, so a PDT is our planning and design team, as a reminder. So our social science planning and design team have been unpacking the new social science standards. So those are by grade level bands. They have been doing that work through our late start Job Alike and are continuing that. Those should be finished by the end of the school year, and so part of that work is not only unpacking and learning more about those standards, but also looking vertical articulation, so how do they flow? K-8. So that work takes a while to do, so they started earlier this school year and will continue throughout the rest of the school year. The science PDT has been working to look at new resources, and that has been a team that is made up of some of our Job Alike members from science, but they have actually been meeting as release time throughout the school year. We had all staff who teach science complete a needs assessment so that we could look at what our staff wanting within a new resource. And that team actually got together earlier today to look at that needs assessment and are continuing to look at resources that align with those needs. So we will, at some point later this school year, be bringing a recommendation to you. And remember, I don't know if you remember or not, but we do have money through ESSER ARP that is set aside for those science resources. And then in addition to that, as you may remember, the health standards were through the state put on hold, and so we've been putting that work on hold. Our assessment work, we have been reviewing and updating our assessments. I will say that particularly our math job alikes, our math content and our science content, have been looking at ensuring that the questions on our assessments that we're working with our students align to the rigor within the standards, and then looking at and having conversations then about, are the assessments really measuring what we want for them to measure, and then helping us with instructional planning moving forward. So that's some of the work that they've been working on currently. And then in addition to that, as you know, we've been spending some time talking about our NWA data to look at our subgroups and look at the data and how does that help to inform our instruction. So that is curriculum goal 1. Wait, there's more. So curriculum goal 2 is investigating options for new or revised course offerings with the emphasis on world language, dual language, and encore opportunities. So before I start talking about this one, what we noticed as we started working through this goal is that some of these things are really intertwined with each other. And so we did move the world language conversation up to this school year, where it started off as next year on the strategic plan. And part of the reason for that is, as we're talking about structure of the school day for grades 5-8, if we're talking about encore options and we're talking about world language options, you can't really do one without the other. They're all going to impact each other. So we do have a PDT that has been meeting. We've met 3 times so far this school year already, where we have started to look at each of these different strands and had some conversations. We're starting to do some research around best practices in each of these areas. We're having conversations with District 127 about what might benefit our students in moving up from grades 5-8 into the high schools, as well as having lots of conversation about, are there places we want to visit in the area? Are there other districts that we want to tap into to find out more information about what's working and what doesn't? Ultimately, we're going to be working towards a recommendation that we will bring to you, not for implementation next school year, but for implementation in the 24-25 school year. So that work will be ongoing, and it has been really exciting to watch our staff as part of that conversation. So I think that's everything for curriculum. I am going to turn it over to Dr. Clay, who's here tonight. And in addition, we do have Mrs. Peltzer, Mrs. Peltzer, our new Director of Innovation with us here. I don't think she's going to be able to answer any questions tonight, but Dr. Clay can explain it.
All right, thank you, Amy. There we go. And board, since tonight is the first and maybe the only time I get to address you, I do want to thank you for the opportunity to lead this department this year. It has been a really fantastic experience for me. I've learned a lot, and I can't say enough good things about the technology team. They have been a true joy to work with, and they've been very patient while they've tried to teach me all things technology, so they deserve a good pat on the back for that one. So this goal is all about our master technology plan for the school district. Amanda Pelzer and I both have reviewed the plan, and even in a year where we've been rebuilding our team, we're happy to report that we're right on track with the plan. So that's good news. One of the first things we did, and this was underway when I walked in, was refreshing all of our interactive boards. So we now have BenQs up here and throughout the district. That project probably was slowed down the most by the turnover in our department. We're still working on it. We're down to about 20 more BenQs to get up, and that'll be done very soon. We've also been able to do ongoing staff development with our teachers. Also, all of our information specialists have gone through training to become certified trainers for BenQ, so we'll be able to do in-house training from now on. We also are implementing our rolling replacement of all of our devices, which is on a 3-year rotation. So very shortly, we'll be ordering a third of the devices to replace that first group, and then each year another third will be replaced. So that's underway. And for our infrastructure, we have been doing what we need to do to get ready for higher speeds. We're getting ready for 6G, actually, and everything that we need to do is in place up until the summer, where they will really do more of the infrastructure replacement. And then we also have a 5-year plan for replacing the outdated equipment throughout the district, that infrastructure, so that we can continue to support all the learning throughout the district. And that's my goal, so now I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Glickman.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to talk with you about the communication goal, which is all about reviewing and expanding and clarifying our communication methods to provide greater consistency and transparency for our stakeholders. So we have 2 different sections of the communications goal. I'm going to start by talking about the unified, accessible communication that we know is so important, and it began with our new website design. Board, as you know, we did in fact roll out our brand new website. We love it. It's launched. Thank you so much, Leslie Armstrong, who's here with us this evening. We have created a plan, as we expected to have web managers at every one of our schools. And some of you already this evening talked with us about what you are seeing happen with those web managers, because they are just posting tons of information both on websites and on school websites and on social media, and we'll get to social media in a moment. And we have launched our dashboard with key metrics. As I've spoken with you about before, as we first rolled out our website, it is a living, breathing document, and we are continuing to update it, and we'll continue to provide more robust information for our community through our website. Then there's our new logo. It's right there in front of you folks' audience, and right over there for everyone else to see as well. It is all over the school district, including on posters. We have our brand new strategic plan poster. There's one right there. They're in all of our schools as well. We have our brand new logo on our board right out to the school district office, and we are loving that. And there are new logos in all of the schools. Tons of t-shirts. Our logo store is out there and happening. I think my favorite, most recent item with a logo on it was the dog kerchiefs, and I don't even have a dog, but I thought those were awesome. Might get one for my granddog. But anyway, communication in multiple languages was another one of our goals this year. It was really just about updating and making sure everyone clearly understood the expectations, which is going very well regarding the language of Spanish. So there is a lot of translation happening in our schools to make sure that our Spanish-speaking population has all of the information that should be available. The latter part of that task for this year has to do with considering a plan for translation in other languages, and those conversations will be happening throughout this spring. And then there's the consistent use of platforms. So, and that's about working with our stakeholders to find out what people really want in terms of how they gain information. Last spring, we did a survey. We'll be doing another one after spring break this year to get information about how our stakeholders want to gain communication from us. Social media, website, messages from me, messages from the school. We'll be looking into all of it. And I'll also add that we've really had an enormous uptick of use of social media. That's not just the web managers in our schools, but many staff members have been taking to Twitter and sharing out the good news, and that's very exciting to see. And finally, onto community connections. This year's work is about how we share information out. also. So, okay, I'm the one who did not bring the note in front of me and him trying to read way out there. So, the CEC web page is under construction still and will be shared out soon. I can't even read it.
Do you want me to read it for you? And
Nope, I'm the one who didn't bring my glasses or the piece of paper, so there you go. But we have absolutely been creating space for presentations for students. So you've seen that we've had students present to you. We had the Frederick School Kindness Club present. We've had students be honored about their own achievements. We have more to come regarding that. We've also looked into whether or not we can bring student presentations to village board meetings. We know from the Grace Lake Village Board that we can bring them very short 5-minute presentations. So we'll be talking about what we might be able to bring them, hopefully still this spring, and if not this spring, in the fall. We're also looking into whether or not we can provide those kinds of presentations to other village board meetings as well from other villages. We've also looked into the opportunity to have our own articles be presented in village newsletters, and in fact, we are in the process of submitting one to the Grays Lake Village that we hope will go in the next mailer. And then back to the CEC, we are indeed working on that website as well. All right, hopefully I got it all. Still couldn't read it. All right, I'm handing it on to my friend, Mr. Wildman, who does have printed notes in front of him and doesn't have to squint. Here you go.
Okay, I'm here to talk about the district finance goal. Review, expand, and clarify financial practices to increase transparency and communication with a focus on aligning financial decision-making to district goals. So the first update area is the Finance Committee. And the district established a finance committee in 2020, and in September we met to discuss funding options with Liz Hennessy from Raymond James. She came to you, she detailed referendum options open to the district, and at the same meeting we received a proposal from WALD, our architects, to undergo an educational adequacy assessment that was board approved and is currently being worked on as we speak. We then met again in November, and the administration presented our 5-year projections, which is directly informing all of our decisions specifically tonight. Second area of update is the increasing financial transparency and communication. As we just heard from the communications goal, we just rolled out a new website. This includes the financial dashboard. This is live and uses information that we directly upload to Frontline Forecast 5, also grabs information from our AFR as well as the Illinois Report Card. We look forward to building on this. It's a starting place as we examine further ways to build further dashboards available to the community, as well as establishing KPIs, key performance indicators, that integrate with the website. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Halprin, who's going to be, you're hearing his voice a lot this evening.
Mr. Wildman, thank you. Believe me, I won't ever forget you. All right, let's see if we can get this going here. So this is just one of many of my speeches tonight. I promise you I won't talk your ears off or bore you too much. First off, thank you very much. I got to say, one of my goals up here falls in line with this right here, Ms. Miller, and I'm going to be honest, that is, no, you're in the way, please. Thank you. That is, I'm sitting there staring at it, and as I was sitting in my seat, and I'm thinking to myself, that is absolutely amazing. It really is. So many things that we talk about and is up on my goals are right there. So I don't know that I really have to say anything else. Oh, no. Going along with it, though, on the facility side, we're always looking at reviewing and expanding our goals each year and reviewing our master facility plan. Well, within it, we are in year 2 of our 3-year priority, our 1 to 3 years, and we are moving right along with it on track. As was stated before, we've been with our architects, WOLD, and talking throughout the district with multiple stakeholders inside and out, of the utilization of our school, our buildings, our learning spaces, so that everything's nice and equitable across. And right along with that, as I stated, you guys did all the work for me, so that we can go ahead and look for different avenues for outdoor learning spaces for Avon, GMS, Frederick, and over at Park Campus. As it stands right now, though, facilities is right on track with their goals for the strategic planning. By the way, I didn't bring my paper either. I just figured that I got a lot to talk about.
You do. All right, board. That's a peek behind the scenes, what's been happening in your school district this year for the first 3 quarters of the school year. And we wonder if you have any questions for us.
I have one. Is the science, what was it, curriculum review? PDT, will that be able to take into account opportunities with multiple ways of learning, outdoor learning, solar panel, all that
It
jazz?
possibly can, yeah. So one of the things that we're looking at is we're looking at different resources that are out there that are, so currently we use STEM scopes, and it's all very hands-on. So we are looking at what's available to us based on the needs that our staff are asking for as well, and that are aligned to the standards. So it is possible. We're looking at several different resources, so.
Okay. I had a question with regards to technology. So I know as part of the update, and thank you so much for the update, and welcome, nice to meet you in the flesh as well. As part of our technology plan, we are scheduled to sunset some devices. And so my question is, do we have some type of repurchase agreement or way that we can generate any type of revenue off of some of the devices that are being sunset? Or is everything going through like the recycle program?
It'll be a combination of those things. The group of Chromebooks that we are retiring for next year are leased. So they'll either go back to the leasing agent, or we can, and I will be working with the loan company that we went through to see if we can sell them to somebody. If not, then they'll just go back to the leasing agent. Under normal circumstances, yes, they can be resold, and especially when you're on a 3-year plan. I know that some were tried to be sold this past year, but I think they were 5 or 6 years old, and the company told us we'd actually owe them money if they took them. So, but this will make them more valuable if they're only 3 years old. So we should be able to. If not, then they'll be recycled.
Good deal. Thank you.
Sure.
Should come back. I have a tech question. Actually, it's going to piggyback right on what Mrs. Nash asked. The devices that are recycled, can you tell us more about what does that mean? In terms of do they go in a landfill or do they go somewhere else?
They do, and I don't know if they go to a landfill. They go to a company who makes sure they're erased, remove any parts that can't go to a landfill. They also reuse metal, and they make their money by selling the parts. So as little as possible goes into landfill.
Great, thank you.
I've got one question. I know at our last meeting we talked about, or it was mentioned, that there was going to be an audit around the special education curriculum. Is that fitting into the strategic plan update at all anywhere?
Sure. So when we created when the strategic plan was put together, we were not at that time talking about a student services audit. It's not really an audit, it's a program review actually, and it will be all of student services. So it's not really just about curriculum, it's going to be about how we serve our students in this school district. That is a conversation that's bubbled up since the time of the creation of our strategic plan. So you'll hear about that in a more formal way when we bring you a recommendation for a consultant to do that work. Whether or not we write it into next year's strategic tasks, I don't know, because again, it's not specifically linked to any of the goals that we had created, although there are many links we could make. So we may or may not put it on the tree map, but, which is what you're looking at, but that's work that's upcoming next school year.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question on the communication goal as it relates to the translation determination.
Sure.
And I think the answer to this question is probably what the work entailed in that bullet point is, but I remember a data point from a few years ago that there were upwards of maybe 25 to 30 languages spoken natively in our district. Is that still about right?
Many more. Can you
Many
talk
more.
about that, Dr. Diaz?
Yeah, we're up to 56 now.
Could you say that again?
56.
56, okay.
Yes.
So as part of the work of that item, review translation expectations, is it to figure out what percentage of our population speaks what languages and where you want to draw the line? Because clearly, I don't think we can translate into 56.
We cannot. Yeah, we
So
cannot.
where to draw the line is part of that work?
So that's part of the conversation, yes. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Can I just jump in real quick? So in the cafe, we were using the BenQ boards, and that board, I think, does translate into all the different languages, which was pretty cool to see that we had some technology that could do that. So I don't know if that's a partial answer to what you
But
were.
was it the board that translated or some software that was
Probably
being
the
displayed
software.
on the board?
Yeah, probably the software.
Software.
You know, and we're always, and again, this is part of what we'll be delving into, we're always walking that line between what is the most respectful way to provide information to people, because sometimes those electronic translations that come can be useful, sometimes not at all. And so that's part of the conversation that we're having. Anything else? All right. Well, again, we'll be back in June with finishing up this work and new plans for next year, but I'm sure, board, you can see we've been very busy moving forward on all of the goals that we committed to doing.
Thank you so much, all of you.
All right, now, I believe we're going to have Adam again, as he hasn't moved very far from the microphone. We have the Sustainability Initiatives Update.
All right. Once again, here we are. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to need that. Tonight, I will be discussing and talking and presenting about the sustainability initiatives we have worked on within the district. Our mission of empowering learners, creating equity, and cultivating community really falls into the sustainability for today and tomorrow's students of the district. The projects we have worked on over the past 6 to 12 months coincide with board policies 4:70 and 5:150 in helping progress the district's goals of sustainability. Our reason for composting has been a data-driven idea. Nothing we do is without data. That's how we get by in schools. That's how we get by in daily living. In November, our cohorts next door, D127 and CCSD 46, along with the village of Grayslake, spoke about setting up composting since we are the two largest businesses in Grayslake. With that being D127 and CC40, tongue-tied, CCSD 46, with the guidance and financial startup from the village, we were able to implement the process in both of our districts, ours being in our two busiest kitchens, which happens to be, sorry, I'm going to take a step back here, GMS and Park Campus. Since the implementation this past January at CCSD 46, both schools have tallied a total of 125 pounds of waste in the back of the house. If you remember previously, we spoke about starting in the back of the house. That way we can get the whole idea down pat. We can understand what we're doing and how we can move forward. Hence the term start small and think big. We are really hoping to be able to implement this towards the front of the house come the start of next school year. With that being said, the plan will eventually be to get it out to all the schools. Sorry about that. I'm getting a little jumpy on the button here. The average per day at GMS or Park happens to be 1 pound, where GMS is 2.75 pounds. One of the big reasons behind that, though, happens to be that GMS is where most of our food does get cooked at. A lot of our stuff gets transferred out to the other schools and then brought back to GMS. That's where our central hub is, though, where we store all of our food and our biggest kitchen is. At the same time of the implementation of the composting, we went ahead and we purchased 16 55-gallon recycling bins, 2 for each lunchroom, and 4 at Park Campus, since they do have 2 lunchrooms. The signs you see here have been printed up, laminated and hung in each lunchroom and taped to each bin. This has helped the staff and students learn and understand what is and isn't allowed to be recycled. All of the staff and students, all the staff and students learn and understand what is it about. All of our school level administrators have been great with helping the implementation of this to the children. D127 offers a club where they are all about gardening, composting, and sustainability. This helps prepare our kids for the next step as they progress through their education. This is where our mission of empowering learners, creating equity, and cultivating community really falls into this. Two years ago, when GSF, our night cleaning service, came on board in our district, they offered a new and improved solution to the chemicals we use, bless you, within the district. Pathosans. Pathosans generator produces both PathoClean and Pathocide in our district. Park and GMS have generators to produce our cleaner and disinfectant, and GSF will nightly bring it to each building where it is needed to ensure that we have enough for the next day. Even being produced on site, it's still a green clean initiative. The chemicals are on the EPA disinfectant N list. All of the chemicals that we use to clean are produced, as I stated, on site. It is between water, salt, and electrolysis that this is all possible. Also, by doing this, we are able to control the amount of money we spend on cleaning chemicals within the district. Over the time of COVID, as everybody knows, everybody was running around trying to find chemicals, things to disinfect. The nice part is, it would have been nice to have it at the start. You won't run out of it. Within doing so, we were able to get rid of glass cleaner, multi-purpose cleaner, stainless steel cleaner, all hard chemicals that were within the district. Nope. While at a facilities conference in November, I was speaking to a supplier about can liners. How they fit. Are they too long? Are they too wide? Do they hang over our garbage cans too much? Do you have to tie them off? How much waste is actually in there? The time it takes to tie off the bags. Sounds exciting, right? That's my life. All the exciting things. But it was really interesting to listen to them talk because it's things you never really think about. You go, even at home, you put your bag in and you're good to go. They offered to come out and do a free analysis of ours in the district at no cost to us. Well, what they discovered was that we were able to come back with smaller bags. And when I say that, we have 55-gallon drums, and we were able to go, we had 58-gallon bags, because that's what normal people put into it, I should say, but we were able to go with 55-gallon bags, which puts less, it reduces our plastic by almost 7,700 pounds going into the landfill. Within doing that, there was more to it, obviously, because we went from a 2 mil, which is the thickness of the bag, down to a 1.2. On the smaller bags, we went from a 1 mic down to a 0.6 mic. We tested, we made sure that we would have no issues with it, and everything was good. So we have gone ahead and we've implemented that. Along with it, it's a cost savings to the district of $10,000. The thought of reduction and recycling. The next implementation that we're looking at doing in the near future here is changing over our hand washing chemicals in the district. The picture on the right, you'll notice all the bottles laying there. Those are going to the garbage. Just like at home or anywhere you see the little bit of chemical in the bottom, it's a waste. Not only that, all that plastic is going to the garbage, so it's going to recycling. Well, the plan is to produce it on site, and all those containers will be reusable. In a district like ours, of our size and our quantity that we have of soap, we will save on average 400 pounds of plastic going into the landfill every year by doing that. We will also save on the hand soap because there will be no waste to it. We'll be utilizing it on site till it's empty. And again, it's a concentrate that we produce on site, gets handed out and just refilled as needed. There is a soft cost to it, but at the end of the day, it's tremendous savings for us with landfill and also with garbage, less going into it. We've spoke about this over the past couple months, past year. Our Resource Conservation Committee, part of Board Policy 4:70. Well, in January, the committee met for the first time, and one of the biggest things that came out of it was including ways of investigating feasible and potential markets for recyclable materials that are present in the district's waste stream, and also to design to achieve baseline information. Well, we came up with a date for that, to be June 2024. With everything that I've showed you tonight, we're starting that baseline. We should be able to quantify those numbers and be able to come up with that baseline without an issue in June of 2024, along with paper waste to follow with that. So, next steps, continuation of different initiatives, future initiatives, like I spoke of, hand hygiene, and other ways that we can help out the district. Any questions?
Good evening, Mr. Halper. Nice job. You covered a lot of territory around sustainability, and it was nicely organized. I appreciate that. I have a few questions. So the first one is around the food waste that you covered. So I was curious if we had more detail around what was being wasted. So, like, is this like fully packaged or full meals? You know, part of what I'm always drawn back to when I hear about food waste is knowing how many food insecure families are in Lake County. So just curious if we know, what's being wasted, and is it something where we could work with Arbor maybe to modify the menu if it's something that the kids, just aren't liking, or is it like just full-blown packages of food where we could potentially have an area in our cafeterias designated as 1 seconds, for children to come over without having to, go up to someone and say, I'm still hungry, but just a place to put excess. Or, have we considered like partnering with local soup kitchens within Lake County? So I know that's a loaded question, but that was my first question around food, and then I did have a question about soap.
So unfortunately, I do not know the exact to what they are throwing out, but with the fact that it is in the back of the house right now, it's really scraps. On the numbers that they gave us so far, I think it was only 2 or maybe 3 days that it was over a 7 or 8 pound in any given place. Otherwise, it's 1 pound, 1.5 pound, 2 pounds. We're filling up a tub that's about this big on a daily basis and dumping it in the bin. It's not very much food at the moment.
Adam, can you just explain what you mean by front of the house and back of the house?
Sure, absolutely.
That'd be helpful.
So with being the back of the house, we're talking about the kitchen, where all the food is prepped, cut up, ready to go. In the front, that was in the back of the house. In the front of the house is the multipurpose room, your classrooms, any other room, teacher's lounge, so on. And currently, we are working only in the kitchen area.
I got it. So this is like food preparers.
Correct.
Exactly.
That is correct.
That's what I want. And so when Adam was talking earlier, I'm sorry. When he was talking earlier about plans for next year we want to start looking at, hey, how can we collect the food that children are throwing away and instead compost that food? That's not where we are right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's helpful. Thank you. And then my question with regards to soap. So thank you for explaining pathogens, because I don't know that I ever heard that before. And when you were first saying chemicals without chemicals, I was like, well, wait, that's an oxymoron, but I get it now. So thank you for that. My question is, do we have to have some type of certification to mix ingredients on-prem? Like, is there any staff training that's required from the facilities teams to do that? And what comes to mind, what's prompting this question is I know there's a lot of allergens. Children have skin allergies or sensitivities, so I just wanted to make sure, like, when we are the ones that are kind of putting the soap together for distribution, is there any particular certification or requirements that we need to make sure it's the right percentage of salt versus electrolysis or whatever?
So let me, I'm pretty sure, in listening to you, you're kind of going with two different, so you're talking one with the Pathosans and then one with the hand soap.
So Pathosans, as I understand, this is what's cleaning our equipment in the kitchens, right?
So Pathosans and Pathocide is what we are cleaning the insides of our buildings with.
Okay.
That is the chemical that they clean all your surfaces with throughout the building. They disinfect it with. The next is hand soap, which is Ecolab, is inside. That's what we'll use in the washrooms, at all the sinks. So with your question to it, the generator automatically does it. We do absolutely nothing. The only thing we do is we add salt to the machine, and we don't even do that ourselves. The company comes in and takes care of it. That's all part of the process with them. We have absolutely nothing to do with it. We get a printout, and we can see online how much is being produced, how much salt, the percentage within it.
Okay.
It is also, sorry to cut you off there, a non-toxic. It says non-allergenic, but I don't know that there's anything out there that somebody somewhere somehow
Sure, but if I understand you correctly, at least the soap mixture that we'll be producing on site, the output is through a calibrated machine.
Yes, it is. So it is actually hospital grade.
Okay.
If you walk into any hospital, they have the Ecolab. Walmart has it. They all have, from the hand sanitizer to the soap.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
So this is more just a comment. Thank you. As I'm taking notes on all the presentations today, it's striking me how intentional everyone has been about reducing waste, whether it's plastic bottles or the packaging, or making sure we're creating stuff on site so we're not vulnerable to supply chain disruptions. Just, I'm wondering if there's a way, well, okay, so hold that, reducing waste and then also generating revenue. We've got cell towers, we've got solar panels. It just seems like there's a lot of, our staff has worked very hard to generate additional revenue in ways that are renewable. And then as you're talking about the green cleaning, the third thing I'm noticing is, I'm wondering if we're gonna have health improvements by reducing the toxins that we're exposing our employees to and our children to as well. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we could add that or to communication somehow, that where our residents can gain some comfort in knowing that our schools really are, our district is really working at being sustainable. Is there like a one page that they could go to say, here's the progress we're making, especially once we have that baseline data?
So this is a conversation that we've all had within a sustainability page. Dr. Glickman,
I'm just watching Leslie smiling and taking notes, that's all. The answer is yes, those are things that we're working on. Okay. Yes.
I see Leslie and Mr. Wildman both sitting there smiling and doing these to each other. It's been a complete district initiative all the way around. Everybody's worked great with it.
I just also want to add a comment because I'm so glad to hear there is this push to include it in communications, because in addition to tonight, you've shared so many other sustainability initiatives, things that could be labeled sustainability initiatives, the building automated system upgrades. Automation system upgrades, the HVAC improvements, and then our equity work. Like, sustainability is about all of these things. So I'm really excited about tonight's meeting and everything that's come out of it.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you. I don't think you're going far.
I'm not. I'll probably just...
looking at my page here, it doesn't look like
stick around
looks like
here.
you're next. All right, so we are now up to new business, and the first one is summer maintenance and capital projects, which I think has the same person on it.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm here all night. Well, welcome to the summer maintenance and capital project presentation here. This is obviously a little bit more of my forte. Besides, sustainability side of it, it all kind of rolls hand in hand together here. But this is where we really shine throughout the year. It's not just summer, but this is where the team really comes together. Part of our mission, or not part, but our mission of empowering learners, creating equity, and cultivating community. Per our board policy or board policies 4:150, facilities need a management system for strategic goals throughout the year and our yearly facilities plans. Well, as I stated earlier when we were talking about our strategic goals, we're in year 2 out of our 3-year, 1 to 3 year capital plan. And where it gets crazy, every year we have 52 possible summer work days. Now, if we include days that teachers come back, 42. Or it could be 47 if we include the teachers that wait till the very last minute to come back. So for our staff on my team, my operations team, and for our contractors, it's a very, very tight frame, time frame to take care of everything. But we always seem to manage to get it done. And we get it done so that it can be completed and provide a safe and comfortable learning environment for all. As I stated, we're in year 2. So some of the bigger projects that you see here are on the capital plan. The Prairie View roof starts the day after graduation. They will have stuff on site and ready to go. By far, that's going to be our largest roof that we've done since I've been here over the past 3 years. They want a completion date of August, so we're gonna be cruising right along with that one. Woodview, same thing. It's another one of the roofs that it's a big roof, lots that has to happen. A ballasted roof, so a lot has to come off before they can actually start work within it. 10-year life safety, so that we can complete that, and we know that rolls right along with our assessment with WOLD. So it's kind of two hands that work together on it. It's with WOLD. The continuation of the Grays Lake Middle School building automation controls upgrade. It started in last summer when we replaced the 5 rooftop units over there. They put those 5 rooftop units on the new building automation and kept everything on the old. So we've got 2 building automations going over there. But along with it, we start Meadowview, Prairie View, Woodview, and we moved up Frederick and Park Campus so that we can get it all done under the same year. And actually this week, they delivered out all the material. They might be short 1 or 2 controllers here or there, but they started delivering it all out to all the schools so that they can really start programming it, getting it going, and get it in, because there's a lot to do in this short period of time. As I stated, 52 days, and that included holidays too. But as we move on, you're going to notice in each one of my schools, our schools that I put up here, you're going to see something very common, and it says normal summer maintenance. I'm not going to run through each school with the normal summer maintenance, but I will just throw out there that a lot of it deals with outside contractors coming in for our normal yearly maintenance and inspections, from our backflow preventers, sprinklers, fire alarms, elevators, our bleachers and backboards, different kitchen equipment that gets checked out. But then a lot of it comes in-house, from cleaning of our HVAC coils, our filters, greasing bearings, making sure that all of our exhaust fans, our equipment's running, the deep cleaning of all of our kitchen equipment that we have, to sidewalk pressure washing outside, lawns cut each week, entrances taken care of, all the lights on the outside and inside of the school are working properly so that when everybody comes back, we don't have lights out. Not to mention we have summer school, so we tend to that, and vacations. It's amazing, but my team wants to take vacations in the summer. I don't blame them. They work all year long for it. But going into Avon, the last of the last is the old air handler that was built into place when the school was built in 1956 in the 96 room. We've had a real tough time getting that one. And it's a built-in place unit, but it's here, it's ready to go. We didn't want to disrupt the school in the middle of the school year, so we have pushed it till the day that school gets out. They've already started to install the valves that go with it, so we're just going to move right along with it. New basketball hoops on the north and south side of the gym with the ability to raise and lower from 8 foot to 10 foot. Since Avon's got the smallest gym and the little kids, we're going to make it equitable and have a little bit of fun there. But this cost will be split with the Park District. Part of our IGA, they have offered to split it with us. Moving on over to Meadowview, We have a bunch of concrete work and patching that needs to be done out there, pads that will get replaced, as we've done throughout the district. And you will see that throughout the presentation here. We have a lot of concrete. I've talked about it before. This district has a lot of concrete through. And as we know in the Midwest here, salt, cold, warm, expanding, contracting, you name it. It's that time. 20 plus years, we need to do a little bit of work on it. Also over at Meadowview, we have a replacement of a 75-gallon hot water tank that serves only the kitchen. In December, we had a couple pipes that froze over there over winter break during the cold spell. And one of the things was getting the hot water tank running. And when I was trying to figure out exactly what the hot water tank took care of, I found out that it was just the kitchen sink in the kitchen. So, not to mention the fact that the hot water tank is from 1989. Definitely time. So, my initiative on that one is going to be to replace it with a much, much smaller tank, most likely a hybrid tank where it will not take gas, it'll be electric, and a heat pump, 100% efficient all the way through on it, especially since it barely ever runs. Over at Prairie View School, as I stated, we have the new roof. We have repairs to the blacktop with potholes over winter, like our concrete, in which I have on here, we gain a lot of potholes. The ice picks it up as we plow over it. And also over on the teacher's side, we are looking to get it seal coated. Try and preserve what we have over there still. Over at Woodview, we have the new roof that we're looking to start in June here, along with 12 new classroom doors and a washroom door over there. Those classroom doors over there are original to the school. So they're very, very old, and we have spots where they're sagging and you can't even close them. There's not much more we can do to them except to replace them. The order is already put in for them with a 16-week wait time on them. So we tried to get them in as fast and as early as possible. Over at Frederick, as you walk up outside, once again, you see a lot of concrete that needs to be done. We have patching and painting inside that needs to get taken care of, and a lot of cleanup work that we're going to be working on and outside to move along with our, I don't want to say beautification process of it, but keeping up on the building. Over at the middle school, as I stated before, the continuation and completion of that building automation there, but along with it, last year, if you recall, we had the gym taken care of. We had the large gym floor. Well, this summer, we're going to be painting the gym. We'll get the new logo in there and new colors for it, spruce it up, and make it look really nice. Along with it, we're planning on resurfacing the small gym floor with the help of the Grays Lake Park District again. They have already offered to upfront the money on it, so it's a good partnership with them there. And along with that, we have a new dishwasher coming for the kitchen. That dishwasher in the kitchen's close to 25 years old, and we have buckets underneath it so that if they want to use it, it doesn't flood out the kitchen. We've spent a lot of money on replacing parts, and it's through the roof at this point. It's actually cheaper to replace it and more efficient and economical. Over at Park Campus, well, that's where our summer school is this year, again. So we'll be taking care of summer school and cleaning inside and out in between, stripping floors and waxing when they're not there afterwards, along with doing a lot of outside concrete work and painting outside of parapet walls up on the ceiling, along with inside of patching and painting walls inside. With the school being 15, 16 years old, a little bit of inside updates to spruce it up. And training, ongoing training for for the staff with new and updated standards that have come out through the years, different goals and initiatives that we've done. Team building with our nighttime cleaning service and with our daytime custodial in-house, with training together, as we have already done over winter break. We did it together. Just some more team building and trusting without. We're all one team. Sustainability training, ongoing. What do I mean by that? Talking about everything we spoke about tonight, different initiatives that we have and how we can progress forward, and we bring to the front of the house the composting, how we ensure that the recycling is done right. Make sure lights are off in classrooms when not needed. Different ideas, you know, any way we can help out. Different and new technology updates for operations and maintenance. I know it's hard to believe in this time and age, but a lot of our team here has been here 20 plus years and they're not very tech savvy. As anybody can tell, I'm fighting with this remote all night. So, you know, just a little bit of work with everybody so we're all on the same page. Universal training of all the buildings. Each custodian and maintenance person will know the ins and out of every building in case people need to cover somewhere, something happens. You never know. But it'd be nice to know that I can call on anybody and say, hey, over at this building, and they have that ability to go over and take care of it. And along with that, continual training with our insurance company. Every year we do asbestos training, slips, trips, and falls. Anybody knows, you know, the duck walk? Different things that the insurance company likes to have us do. So our next steps, implementing it, taking care of it, get the 52 days in and bring staff back. Any questions?
I do. So again, just you've done so much work already, and so I'm not trying to keep pushing, but I'm just genuinely curious. I just quickly pulled up something on concrete because I saw concrete repairs come up a lot, concrete and paint, and concrete is the highest consumed product on Earth besides water, according to Princeton, and the emissions, if they aren't cut, our environment will be polluted with over 4 billion tons of carbon dioxide annually due to the industry. So it just seems like there might be an opportunity there. I don't know if that's something that you've looked into or not. And I didn't warn you that I was going to ask you this, so if you don't have an answer, that's fine. And then just paint. I'm wondering if we're able to use low VOC paint to control the particulate matter that our kids are breathing in, or no?
We do.
Yes.
Everything we do is low VOC. We try to get no VOC, depending on what we're dealing with, but absolutely on that point of it. As for concrete, one of the things I have spoke with is a couple engineers in regards to, I'll go to Meadowview, for instance. Do we need all that concrete? Can we change that to some grass over there, change up different aspects of it? I mean, we have so much concrete. Is it necessary? Can we beautify it with a grass coming through? Can it be open for more drive? Along with concrete, though, one of the things we do is we reuse it. They will crush it up and reuse as much as they can, and bring it back to whoever they're getting their concrete from.
I just have a quick question, since you have some roof work going, especially like at Woodview. I know we're not ready to throw or put up more solar panels, but is the roof going to be kind of prepped for that initially?
Do you feel like we just had this conversation yesterday?
He didn't warn, I didn't talk to him first.
That's okay. Yesterday, as Mr. Wildman and I were sitting talking about the roof over there, I even said to him, I'm like, I really wonder if once we have this, because of the way that the roof is constructed, if we're able to put solar panels up there without any changing of the infrastructure. I don't know that off the top of my head right now. But it is definitely something that I question because it's a flat roof and there's a lot of space up there.
Yeah, we had a similar conversation when we put them on GMS, because we put a new roof on GMS, and then we came back a year or two later and put the solar panels on. So I'm just trying to prep that in the event that we ever get to the point where we're going to put them on there.
Over at Woodview, I do know that a good portion of that school is steel beam. So it shouldn't be, but once again, I'm not a structural engineer on it. If it's up to me, I'm putting it up there, but I'd rather get the blessing from them first on
Sure.
it.
That was my one question. Anybody else? All right.
With the training for the O&M team, does some of that include exploring different planting options, like with no mow grass? I feel like that was mentioned. Maybe that was one of the public comments. I can't
That
remember.
was a public comment.
Okay. Okay.
It is not one of them that's on there. And I only say it because that's not in our realm. We would bring in other people from, whether it be the village of Grays Lake, as you look around and they're doing it right down Atkinson, what can we do? But along with it, I will tell you that my head custodian over at Prairie View, she brings in stuff from home and she plants it around to the school because she loves the way it looks over there. I'll come into the office and then I've got these plants in my office. She brings them into the office too. So I do know that we do have people on the team that are very much into it, which is definitely something we can look into.
I just wanted to also thank you for the intergovernmental agreements with the Park District and even thinking about how we might partner with the village to do PD on native plantings. I know they're trying to work that into our sustainability plan as a village too. So thank you for another way of reducing waste. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. I think you're done. Unless you want to talk about the, update to the enrollment projections. No? Okay. Chicken. So next is an update to the 2023-24 enrollment projections and preliminary staffing.
Sorry. Good evening, board, visitors. Thank you, everybody. Tonight, I'll be presenting the preliminary 23-24 enrollment projections and staffing plan. I want to highlight the first word of that title, preliminary, because this is ever-changing. In fact, the memo that you received last week, there have been some changes, so as we go through this, you may notice, like, hey, that wasn't in the memo. Not hiding it. It's right there. We're telling you about it. But as we go through this, we're continuing to try and address the changing needs of our student enrollment and the changing needs of the things that we're handling within the schools on a daily basis. Okay. So, as always, we start with the mission: empowering learners, creating equity, and cultivating community. That's what we do here. These are the three tenets that we live by. I'm talking about students and staff. The number one thing that impacts student achievement is quality staff. So a little bit about the process. You've heard me talk about this before every time that I get up here. We talk about how we move students through, how we look at our enrollment. So this year, normally it's in January. This year was in February. We had to do some numbers. So we took a look at our student enrollment, current student enrollment, and then I had meetings with our building administrators and department heads. And then we use a cohort survival method. Sounds very dramatic, but it's just advancing each grade level one grade up. So our kindergarten numbers this year move into first grade for 23-24, second grade this year, third grade for next year. Not overly complicated, but it sounds pretty cool. Some of the trends that we've seen over the past couple years is that For the past, I know what you mean, things are moving. For the past 3 years, we've projected a decline in our enrollment. And we've actually kind of seen that as we go into the summer. But for the past 2 years, at the start of the school year or soon thereafter, we've actually seen an increase. This year was about 45 students more than we ended the year with last year, when we were supposed to see a pretty big trend down. So, and this is kind of a pattern we've seen over the past 2 years. Could have to do with many different things. People want to be in Grays Lake. Also, the housing market has been booming for the past 2 years, as anybody who has tried to purchase a house will tell you. As always, when we take a look at staffing and enrollment, we have to pay attention to the collective bargaining agreement. Last year in our CBA, we put a very hard class parameter on it. So in grades kindergarten through 4th grade, we have 25 students as a max in those classrooms. And then for 5th grade through 8th grade, limit of 30 in those classrooms. As we move forward, what we project for next year is approximately 17 to 25 kids in our K-4 classrooms and 22 through 29 in our 5-8. Those are ranges because not every building is the same, and based on section numbers. When it comes to, I don't have pre-K up there, and I'm going to address pre-K in a minute, but pre-K is determined by the state and how many students we can have in a class. Yeah.
Could I ask you a clarifying question before you
Sure.
move on? You mentioned in the previous slide that enrollment increased after the start of the school year. So that's from that point in time to the end of the school year. So once that enrollment increased, did that new higher number still more or less than the previous year? In other words, are you saying that you're absolutely growing by 45 and 62, or just from point in time A to point in time B?
From point in time A to B.
Okay, so once you're at point B, are you higher than last year or lower?
Are you trying to steal my thunder? Thunder stealer? So here we go. These are the projected numbers for next year. What you'll see is these are the numbers that have been advanced to next year. And on the 3 columns on the far right, projected 22-23. So that was what we had last year about this time. Our current 22-23, that is where we are as of February 1st. So we were anticipated to be at 3,550 students. That's based on just the cohort survival method. This year, when we started February, we were at 3,595, so 45 more students. If we use the same methodology, we're projecting 3,564 students. And we know that the housing market has slowed a bit, but we don't know kind of where it's going to go. We do foresee the bank rates have gone up, and so things may not be as volatile in the housing market right now. So we're kind of unsure where we're going from here as far as new enrollment goes. So if you take a look, and it's kind of hard to read. I know it's very small, but when we take a look, we say kindergarten, so the current 22-23 currently has 385 students. We advanced that to 1st grade for projected 23-24, so it reads diagonally going from the right down to the left. As I've mentioned, or as I'll share in a minute, for pre-K and kindergarten, we kind of keep those numbers as they are. Reason for that is we always start pre-K with lower numbers. Through the screening process, that's at the middle of the year and towards the end of the year, that's when we see our numbers at their highest because we're always bringing in new students. As far as kindergarten goes, both kindergarten and pre-K are kind of wild cards. We know our ECC kids that are coming over to kindergarten. That's a known to us. We don't know about some of those kids that may not have siblings, that may not register early, that may not have legacy families that are here. So those are just those are difficult to anticipate. I've provided 6 years worth of kindergarten information, starting in January of 17-18, and up to this year, where we have continually, for the most part, grown. This being our highest year for kindergarten students. You notice in January 18-19, there's an asterisk in that box. That's our first year of full-day kindergarten. Now, what do I have here? Staffing changes for 23-24. As we plan for next year, we are not only taking a look at our enrollment numbers, but we are continuing to take a look at the evolving needs of our students and what is going on with them across the board. We are looking to increase staff for next year, and I'll run through some of the different items that we're looking at. Due to enrollment changes, we're looking to add 4 classroom sections. It's actually 5, but we're also reducing one in a school, so the net is 4. This is because we just don't have, it's not fluid. You know, we don't add in the same spots. So we're looking to add 1st grade at Prairie View, 4th grade at Avon, and a 1st and 2nd grade at Meadowview. We're looking to add a bilingual interventionist at Meadowview. This is, the reason for this is Meadowview is one of the schools that houses our elementary bilingual program. We already have an interventionist at Prairie View and Avon. We do not have a bilingual program at Park or Meadowview, or Park or Woodview, as those students are bused over to another school. So Park students are bused over to Prairie View, Woodview goes over to Meadowview. We're looking to add a bilingual special education teacher split between Frederick and GMS. This is due to the increasing number of students in our bilingual program who have IEPs. We're looking to have an additional social worker at Park, or at Meadowview, at a 0.6, and this is to help with not just the MILE program that is at Meadowview, but also helping in other areas. But we do have the MILE program, several MILE classrooms that are there, and this is to help assist over there. ECAT is currently a 0.8 SLP, speech language path. So that's currently what we have allocated. We're looking to increase that by 0.2 to make that a full 1.0 FTE. That is not only to address ECAT, continue that, but also help cover some of the overages that are across the district, just to help out. We're looking to add 3 special education resource positions, 1 at Meadowview, 1 at Avon, and 1 at Prairie View. Reason for this is we continue to see our caseload numbers go up for our special education students, in terms of special education students. Our focus there will be to recruit special education teachers that are bilingual. I will share, I told Dr. Glickman this and she caught me. The other day I met the best bilingual special education teacher that I've ever met. She called me on my nonsense and said, I bet that's the only one. And it is. I've only met one of those individuals, and we're looking to hire them right now. So I'm trying to set up a meeting with them as we go.
But we assume this person is outstanding.
She's fantastic.
Okay.
I already have reference checks on her. Also, I'm going to share these two different positions, and then after this slide's over, I'm going to call up some of my colleagues so they can share a little bit more about these positions. But we're looking to add 2 K-4 instructional coaches that focus on SEL. This is a big topic that we've discussed not just here at the board, I mean, it's everywhere. The social emotional needs of our students are there. It's a society. We are dealing with this. And we have 2 instructional coaches on there for the K-4 buildings. They will be split between the buildings. And you may notice we don't have anything for 5-8. And this is because we hired deans last year, and part of their job description is to actually work with students on their social emotional learning and needs. They're more hands-on with the students. This position would be more with the teachers, but we're also looking to maybe move out our deans into more coaching roles to help support our teachers as well. But I'll have Mrs. Gluck explain a little bit about that. And then also, I'll have Dr. Lorenzo share a little bit more about the 2 K-4 student service facilitators. This is, I will be completely honest, special education is not my wheelhouse. I can do a good job, but she's going to do a much better job explaining what that individual's role will be about. We're looking to add a nurse to our school district. This is actually going to replace a purchase service. So we currently have a contract with a nursing company for a nurse. If we replace this individual, this will be a cost savings to the district. And then we're looking to add 5 program assistants with the specific needs of addressing the translations and interpretation for our Ukrainian students. This is also going to help replace some of our purchase services. We're working with multiple different agencies to have interpreters here to help those students assimilate and learn, be able to learn in their native language. So this would be a cost savings as well. And that's what I have. I will let my colleagues share, and then I'll be able to answer any questions that you might have. My pleasure.
Hello again. So I'm going to explain the 2 K-4 instructional coaches that have an SEL focus. So Dr. Wilk already started to explain, as you know, social emotional learning is something that we have been spending a lot of time focused on and having conversation about. And we are looking to have these individuals as instructional coaches. It's going to allow for us to have some proactive work within our classrooms, supporting our teachers with what they are doing with students. So they wouldn't necessarily be supporting students specifically, but really helping our teachers to look at how are they providing social emotional learning lessons within the classroom, really explicit lessons for students, but then also might be able to do some modeling with teachers or co-teaching with teachers to help engage all of our students in deeper social emotional learning in a proactive way. We would also be working on student-to-student relationships, so there's a lot of conversation about engagement within the classroom, and that works on how are students interacting with each other, how are they problem solving, how are they working through possible conflict that might come up. So really helping to support and build capacity within our staff to be able to then help to support their students overall. And looking at just engagement structures within the classroom and within instruction. So how are we truly providing opportunities for students to be engaging with each other as they're learning? So working on, again, a way for us to be proactive and build capacity of our staff, which will then impact more students over time.
I'm going to help save Dr. Wolk. So currently we have 2 psychologists that share 4 K-4 buildings. This includes having to do 504 case management, the LEA responsibilities for both annual reviews and for evals, which include initial evaluations or reevaluations for special education eligibility, as well as cover all of the MTS.
LEA. Some people might not know what LEA means.
It's the legal responsibility of our district to be able to make educational decisions at an IEP meeting. So you need someone who can represent that ability to do that. So you always have one person at the table that functions as an LEA rep. So they run those, they facilitate those meetings, all of the annual reviews and the eligibility meetings for 2 schools per those psychologists, plus their response to intervention, or their MTSS process, which is our data review process to provide interventions for all students in our schools. As you can imagine, that's becoming a very heavy load in and of itself. So the goal is to bring 2 student services facilitators to our team, who can help offset a lot of that workload. It allows our psychologists to focus more on the data, decision-making, and their evaluation time, and allow this person in each of the 2 roles to focus on facilitating Section 504, supporting teachers with that process and implementation, support an annual review, IEP meeting facilitation as the LEA rep, and also support in our IEP implementation and development compliance. We want to make sure that we're legally compliant and we continue to stay on trend with that. So we're recommending 2 to add to those psychologists and support them.
Dr. Lorenzo, before you leave, can you also explain ECAT? I'm wondering if some folks need to hear that.
Yes. So in our early childhood center, we have both direct services for our students. That is our programming for students who are either deemed at risk or have special education services. And we also have what we call our ECAT program, and they're our early childhood assessment team. Those professionals evaluate students through students that come out of the birth through 3 early intervention program. There needs to be an evaluation for services and an IEP before their 3rd birthday. So that's one capacity for that ECAT team. It's a play-based evaluation model, so they're trained to do that specifically. It's a real specialized practice. And then the other capacity is we hold screenings each month for students who are ages 3 to 5. So they conduct those screenings and then evaluate those who may need more evaluation for special education services for 3 to 5-year-olds. Sound good? Thanks. Dr. Wolk.
All right, I have a couple questions for you. So this is probably a lot more than we've seen in the past of asks for new employees, right?
Yes,
Or new positions.
it is, yeah.
It's about 20 full-time positions when you add them all up.
13.8 certified,
13.
5 non-certified.
Okay,
I'm sorry, 6 non-certified.
I was close. I said 20. So, do we have an estimated cost of what that'll be a new salary that he has to come out of his budget with?
So,
And where does that stand with us?
Mr. Wildman and I, along with Mr. Maddock this morning, or this afternoon, sat down and tried to cost this out. I'm gonna give you a range.
I
It's
won't
going
hold you to it either. I'm
Yeah.
just asking.
$550,000 to $750,000.
Just so we know what the dollar ask is that we're looking at,
Yeah.
because we have to make sure.
I mean, we plugged in general numbers on where I thought we would be able to find staff based on experience and educational levels. Some of these positions require masters.
Very specialized people, right?
Yeah. And so also taking a look at trying to incorporate some of the cost savings in that. So a couple equations later, it's kind of where we landed.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
I have a couple. So when we see the 0.6 and the 0.2, right, so not a full FTE, is it, let me reframe the question. Could we identify a resource that can fit both roles, or they're that like mutually exclusive?
Those are separate. Both of those would a social worker and an SLP, totally different job.
Okay.
But the 0.2 SLP is actually on top of a 0.8 that we already have existing. So that's not
So
going to
that would
be.
make
That's
them
just going to be somebody that may have been a part-time position
Part-time
being a
coach
full-time position.
Okay.
And then the 0.6 social worker, Dr. Lorenzo and I had the conversation about, we typically find, she typically knows some people that are like, you know what, I don't want to work full-time, but, you know, part-time would be much more agreeable to their schedule. And so that's where we might be able to find someone like that.
That's helpful. Thank you. And then my next question, I love hearing that we want to make data-driven decisions. That's always ideal. And when we talked about the bilingual special education split between Frederick School and GMS, I was curious if there is any correlation between the IEPs and the bilingual. Like, I feel like there's a story there and or some analysis that I want to better understand.
No, not so much.
You know, that is a wonderful question, and it's something that many districts in this nation are asking. But this is something that Dr. Diaz, Mrs. Linda Mizwicki, and I have been really targeting this year because we want to help support our staff in making sure that we are discerning what is language acquisition versus what is a skill deficit or a disability. We trust our colleagues to do really strong things for our staff, for our students, but we want to help them in that decision making. We've also included our curriculum coordinator, Amanda Woodruff, because Linda Mizwicki and Amanda are leading the MTSS kind of reset and creating more improvements across our district universally and with that, and we want her included because that's where those decisions start at our problem-solving level. So we've been working with outside professionals who are really good at this and trying to bring that work back to our teams.
I want to also just interject that I know this will seem obvious, but just like our English-only students have IEP needs, we have Spanish-speaking students who have IEP needs. And we cannot currently provide specialized special education instruction to students in their native language, right, if they are Spanish-speaking. And so this assists us with that.
Yes, that is true. Thank you.
Dr. Lorenzo. Can I say that again? Dr. Lorenzo.
So fun.
Well, Dr. Lorenzo, I was wondering, and again, I know I'm catching you off guard a little bit, but I'm wondering if there are trends in the types of accommodations that we're making, and if that at any point would inform the types of instructional materials that we purchase or that we adopt. And my thinking is maybe that would be a more cost-effective way of meeting those kids' needs.
You know, it's been our work with our team leaders and our PLC process to really talk about, do our instructional practices match outcomes that we're hoping for, and evaluating that work, which could include methodology, it could include resources, and also it could include how we leverage use of accommodations to support learning and create equitable practices versus create more padded learning experiences for our students. We certainly want students to have equitable access to learning experiences, but we certainly don't want to pad them away from them. So that conversation is definitely what we're doing with our PLC work, with our special ed staff, student services staff.
And is that something that the SEL instructional coaches would bring to the conversation as well?
They
or is that a
could.
different? Okay.
They could, yeah. All of our instructional coaches. I know Mrs. Gluck and I have been talking a lot about how we engage our instructional coaches with those teams as we continue to enhance our PLC work with our staff.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that we're always looking at is all of our students should have access to Tier 1 instruction, right? So that's what is happening within their general education classrooms before they're receiving their special education services. And so one of the things that our instructional coaches that we have been talking about is how do we then also ensure that our special education teachers are very familiar with that so that then we can provide accommodations and scaffolds and supports with kind of what you're talking about. So thinking about how do we very deeply look at instruction and look at what our students what they need first, and then based on their needs that are identified through their IEP, how do we help to support that?
Okay, looks like we are good.
Before they sit down, I just wanted one more comment. Our team has been, I have to share with you, laboring over this list. And it is not with ease that we bring you such a lengthy list of supports that we're looking for our children. And I'll also share this is already a pared down list. You know, I appreciated the question that you asked, Jim, and it would have been very surprising if no one asked that question, right? That's a reasonable question to be asking. We knew it was coming. As Dr. Woke shared early on when he pulled up this long list, this is directly related to the needs that we are seeing in our children right now. These aren't even predictive needs, right? This is what our kids need now, and that's why we have such a long list.
Well, then I have a follow-up question to that then. Sorry.
It's okay.
So
I opened up the door.
was the pared down so this being a pared down list, was the longer list pared down basically on cost alone, or what was the reason to pare it down further than what you already had?
Cost, and looking at a couple of positions and saying, we think it might work better if we do it like this.
Okay. I would just say, I would encourage you to keep looking at that list, and if there's others that need to be added for services for kids, those are worthwhile investments for the district.
Okay, thank you. We
That's my opinion, but-
appreciate hearing that. And by the way, we will be bringing back, guess what? We're coming back in April. So with 15 more positions. No, it won't be. But we will be coming back, right, to give you, even more honed information.
Okay, then my next question then is for Mr. Wildman. And the next question is, the calculation of the estimate of what, half to 3/4 for this list of 19-ish resources. I don't think that was ever contemplated in any estimate that you've ever put forth to us, whether it related to, for any reason. So was it represented in the budget at all in any way through some sort of a, not named line item, or is this all incremental to any estimate you've ever given us? Besides the cost savings from purchase services. Am I asking a question that you can answer?
So we do have a small amount of contingency that we carry.
That's the word.
Yeah, so this year's contingency was $200,000, and it was carried as just a nondescript line in the business office. In terms of salary, we staff the budget based on 100% hired. So that's with the intention that these positions are going to be filled. So when you look at the treasurer's report, which I'm sure you all do, right? Yeah. There's a report in there which shows salary differential between budget and actual. So we don't always fill 100% of our positions, but the intention is to 100% fill these. So when I present the budget to you in preliminary form in May, and it goes through the budget process, and you eventually approve it, the intention is for this staffing, whatever iteration we bring to you as final, to be fully staffed. So there will be an incremental amount that's not, so I'm going to get to your answer. There is going to be an incremental increase in salaries based on what's been presented in the past, because this was not anticipated in any 5-year projections that I've given to you, especially back in November, which I mentioned earlier. Okay.
Yeah, the second benefit of that longer list is a needs assessment of what the district is going to need in staffing in the future, so that future boards, and as we're going out for the possibility of a referendum, we can say these are the positions that we as a board and as staff need to make a much better school system for the children by having that list already prepared. It gives us another visual aid to make our case. And I think you're done. All right, next is the equity and inclusion policy, and I believe Christie's taking care of it.
I am. Oh, sorry, I thought I was chiming.
Oh.
But I'm happy to lead it. I guess I should turn my mic on. All right. So we wanted to bring before you.
So Brandon, that's for the policy? So this, wrong Christy. Okay, but that's just the next thing, so.
I can take it. It's fine. It's all good. Although I'm sure you're going to chime heavily, so
I'll
please do.
chime.
So the background on the equity and inclusion policy is, as you know, the original policy was created in help me, Dr. Mack. 2016. So we're at 7 years in, and we know that both our commitment to what we used to call diversity to equity and inclusion has grown and expanded. We have a better understanding of what needs to happen in the district, and the national conversation about what equity and inclusion should look like has expanded as well. So as part of updating this policy, we wanted to reflect both of those pillars. So part of what we did was really tap into our Equity Inclusion Committee to get their perspective. And then we also, Mrs. Nash and I want to make sure you get a chance to weigh on this as well. We really looked at what other districts have adopted in terms of policy and really tried to put together the best of the best is maybe the way, So it was really helpful to see what other districts are doing, but I think we also identified some things that we felt very strongly about in our district as well that should be included. And so you'll see in the policy, there's just a purpose. There's a statement of purpose around, why do we have such a policy? What is the reason that we do? And it references our mission, and it references sort of why we exist in the community. To the ultimate goal is really to have successful outcomes for all of our students, and create situations where everyone can strive for their full potential, and also address systemic barriers to equity. And so we felt it was really important to also define equality compared to equity. I know that's a conversation that happens not only in our boardroom, but out in the community as well. So we wanted to make sure that we were really clear that we're talking about equity, and that we were talking about systems of equity as well, because we have a lot of systemic sort of solutions. And so we actually put together what do we recommend that the board hold themselves accountable for, which is new. That wasn't in the policy before. And then what do we need the superintendent to do? And then what are our overall commitments to creating equity within the district? So I'm actually going to hand it over to Mrs. Nash because she was my co-collaborator in this journey, and to kind of add her perspective as well.
Thank you, Mrs. Braden. And Brandon has been so awesome because my laptop won't function for me.
Oh,
so
no.
I don't have my notes off the cuff. But just some of the things in terms of this work in optimizing, I like to use the word optimizing the policy, because I do think that it's worth calling out how refreshing, even though our policy was all of maybe 3 bullets, right, that the board at that time took steps to put pen to paper around what our values are and what we want for our students here in District 46. What we have optimized, I think it's a very holistic approach to a policy. So as opposed to just having a definition, of what diversity is and calling out, just a one-liner over, what it means to us. I think we now will have a comprehensive, very rich and holistic equity policy that meets the moment of today, but it allows us to be fluid enough, recognizing that, right around the corner, there's another emerging thing that we need to be able to respond to as proactively. Ideally, we're not being caught on our heels with this new policy and being, too reactive, but I think it pulls in a lot of rich content. We explored 2 or 3 other districts that have very content-rich policies and was able to really tease out, like Mrs. Brayton said, the best of both worlds, but also frame it with our community in mind. So not trying to adopt Evanston or Huntley or any other community, but recognize, our Grayslake constituents and understanding what their needs and values are. One of the things that was also especially important with this work is that it anchors back to our core values. So we spent a lot of time and energy and effort working as a community on our strategic plan. And I think what we pulled together really anchors back to our strategic plan and our mission and vision for the district. We also put a heavy amount of effort and intentionality around accountability and roles and responsibilities and what they mean. So when we're sitting on the board, what does it mean to hold ourselves accountable to our equity plan? What does it mean for the superintendent? What's the ongoing training and requirements we need to do to make sure we're staying on the cusp of what's coming, so that we stay ready to provide, best-in-class policy and inclusion to all of our constituents here in the district. And then lastly, I think we did a really nice job also just calling out, this is a living document, and to be as intentional to those words on the paper, to allow those words on the paper to breathe and have true meaning, that it will require some investment. And so being able to, call out not only, roles, responsibilities, and have that accountability, but also identify the financial needs that our district will need to invest to make sure that we really breathe life into the equity and inclusion policy.
So I'll be happy to talk through the responsibilities for a moment. Okay. So board, if you look, you can see that there's responsibilities are divided between Board of Education and the superintendent. And so, and again, these are new, right? This didn't exist don't exist in our current diversity policy. So the first bullet point for the Board of Education is engaging in equity training. And so we are proposing that the board will participate in equity training at least once every 4 years. And that newly elected or appointed board members shall participate in education-related equity training within the first 12 months of election and appointment. We do note that that type of training is available through IASB, but there are other kinds of training that we could pursue as well. And it might be interesting just, for the board to engage together in training. So that's one of the commitments. The next one is about engaging our community, which we've had a lot of conversation about recently. So I'll just read that one. Work to increase outreach to and engagement with families that represent the diversity of our students and community. I want to answer that.
And I just want to call out, I think the community cafe was a great example of that. And I really appreciated Christy Miller's, we had a conversation about how we felt that the cafe exemplified our commitment to equity. And so really appreciate that, like, cross-talk, because it really is, as Tamika said, it really is embedded in everything we do. So I think it was a great example of, like, looking at what we, this very bullet in action.
Can I just add to that real quickly? I'm going to pass the back, and we didn't have this conversation together as a collection of 3 people. However, I really want to call out that Mrs. Albert really, she really held carried the lion's share of the work with stakeholder engagement and really reaching out and making sure all of those stakeholder groups were represented as well as possible, extending lots of personal invitations and really engaging with people one-on-one. So it really is a commitment, and I think it's a valuable one too. So that's a dual yes and thank you.
Thank you. The next one is about making decisions with an equity lens. And this is a conversation that does often happen at this table where somebody will ask, whose needs are not being considered or who isn't at the table. So the concept here is that as appropriate and dependent on what we are discussing, the board will take a look at the decision that has to be made and formally look at it through an equity lens. And we've identified 2 areas with 4 questions each. So bridge building, will this decision align with the district's equity and inclusion guiding principles? And those are another document that we have that's on their website. Will this decision perpetuate a current inequity? Will this decision create a new inequity? And are those being affected by the decision included in the process as appropriate? And then looking at barrier moving, who's in the room, what perspectives and voices are we missing, what possibilities were explored, have our decisions removed barriers, and is our decision going to build bridges and provide the needed interventions and solutions? And what should the board choose to adopt this policy, what I would propose we do is actually create posters with those questions on them, just like we have our mission poster hanging there. There is conveniently yet another space on the other side of the room where we could have another poster. And whether the board, chooses to go through every single question at each time, which could be incredibly time consuming, that might not be something you choose to do, but they'll be right there. And the board can call discussion about, hey, I'm looking at this one, this particular topic, let's talk about it for this policy, or for this decision. There will be decisions that you have to make and decisions you have to vote on that these won't speak to, right? These questions won't speak to, but many of the conversations that you have do. So I'm particularly excited about that one. And the last one was also already alluded to, which is allocating resources. Allocate resources in an intentional and fiscally responsible manner to provide every student with equitable access to high-quality curricula, culturally competent adults, support facilities, and other educational resources, which actually brings us right back to the staffing conversation we were just having and the bilingual special education staff that we want to add. It's exactly for that reason. And then the superintendent shall implement the policy, so it's really developing a plan containing specific actions to implement this policy, aligning it to our current strategic plan. With clear accountability and metrics, which is what we already do, right? If you think about the presentation that you just saw earlier, it was about 2 hours ago, but anyway, it's been a long night. Right? What we're going to do every year, that will be included, and reporting the progress. And then this policy goes into commitments, which kind of wraps around to the beginning. So as Christy talked about earlier, the policy begins with explaining the purpose. In many ways, it ends with explaining the purpose too. It's just the commitments that the board is making to how we take care of our community. So, questions or comments about this policy?
So I have a comment. I love this policy. I love the holistic approach, the questions, the circle right back to commitments. I would like us to consider thinking about equity not only in the terms of this generation, but in the terms of the next generations. So specifically around resource allocation, that when we allocate resources and which resources we allocate, we make sure that we are not compromising the ability of future boards to provide for their students. And that's directly related to sustainability. And sustainability, as you know, has 3 pillars, one of which is equity, but it really focuses on intergenerational equity. So if there's some way we could have that reflected, I think it would, that's just a little addition. everything is so comprehensive, but something that would be important to me.
I think there's a place for it in the purpose statement.
And I think one of the things we volleyed back and forth in the position statement is allowing it for fluidity, right? So we were very, in some spaces, very intentionally broader, right? So that we didn't box ourselves in, and we did have the ability to be agile and flex where we needed to as, you know, our environment changes.
Yeah, for example, one of the iterations of this policy included the definitions that we have just recently included on our website. And I have to give credit to Amy Gluck as well, because it really was the four of us working very deeply on this policy. As we looked at it, we thought, well, actually, we're getting ready to add yet another definition on our website, because we haven't included on our website on the equity and inclusion webpage, we haven't included a definition of inclusion. Oh, that seems important, so we need to add that. So, maybe we should put it in here. And as we realized, we thought, things evolve so quickly that we don't want to be, as you said, boxed in and constantly bringing a policy back to the board for additions, for definitions. We would rather be able to easily just add those to the website, which doesn't include, board policy approval. So that's just an example of trying to keep things broad. So thank you for saying that.
In 2016, when this started, I don't think well, maybe we did. I don't know. Maybe this was all forethought, but I don't think we could have imagined 7 years later we'd actually be seeing equity and inclusion policies being removed from districts around the country. It's a dangerous time. This policy is incredible and speaks to the work that you've all done. I appreciate it. We've got to stand at the front line of that because they're being removed and attacked all over the country, and this is important for this district.
Anybody have anything else? No? Just thank you for the work you guys have all done. I assume this goes on, moves forward?
Yes, so we can bring it back next time for approval. I am wondering about the question that Christy added, and it sounded like you had some ideas of how to update it?
Pretty easily, I think.
Easily?
I
So
can
what
make
you-
that small tweak.
So why don't we plan on this? Let's plan on it for approval with an addition next time. If at the board meeting, as we look at that revision again, if it's still not ready for approval, then we'll table it and work on it again some more and then bring it to next time. Okay, sounds good.
All right. Last but not least is policy review process.
I would appreciate that. Yeah. I would appreciate that.
Happy to do that.
Hi. Did we wake you? All right. Okay, so we'll table that for the next go around. Topics for future agenda items?
All right, well, I have a long list for April 12th, but most of them do not seem as robust as tonight was. All right, so we do have two groups coming that we want to celebrate. I mentioned that earlier, the Park Campus 8th grade girls basketball team and all those fantastic wrestlers. We were going to do the 23-24 board meeting dates, but I actually think maybe we'll just move that one to May. Does that sound okay? Because I'm looking at the long list and just got longer. Okay, so we'll move that to May. We have contract for the Woodview roof, and that'll be an action item as per the 3-year capital timeline. For food service renewal with Arbor for fiscal year 23-24, that'll be up for discussion. An RFP recommendation for garbage and recycling services, health insurance renewal as well. We'll bring an update to staffing, so update from what we shared with you tonight. Amy is going to be bringing an after-school a use of ARP funds and after-school tutoring program that we're going to be talking about. And then we have this approval of the equity and inclusion policy and the policy approval process. Okay. And then moving into May, we have those meeting dates. We could actually bring that policy approval process to May 3rd, unless you want to do it sooner. Well, I'm just thinking maybe because we still do have a lot on that. Okay, so let's move it to May 3rd. Okay. May 17th, we have, the student activity fees. Remember, we talked about that months ago. We said we're bringing that back in May. Guess what? That'll be done. May 17th. On June 7th, we have Senator Edley Allen coming to speak with us. So thank you. I think that was Christy who got that in place. Thank you. And on June 21st, we'll be bringing up the district strategic goals again. And guess what? That will be the end of fiscal year 23, which is kind of freaky. I do want to mention, we probably will have some other student presentations between now and the end of the year. We have a couple of things we're thinking about. I did want to mention that Dr. Karner, the superintendent of the Lake County ROE, has offered to come to board meetings throughout the county to speak to boards about what is offered through the ROE. And I wanted to know if the board would be interested in such a presentation. It doesn't have to be this spring, but he's made the offer now. Oh, I'm sorry. Look at this. I'm the one who keeps asking people to define things. Thank you. Regional Office of Education. Yeah, so there's just lots of programs that are available that we as a school district take advantage of that, he just kind of he's offering to highlight if you have an interest in hearing that. Yes? Okay, so I'll work with him to schedule that. And also, we need to schedule a policy committee meeting, right? Because you tabled a policy. And I think, Sue, when does that policy have to go to? Can you get an extension on it? Okay. Tell them we are deeply discussing things, which we are. Okay, but I think we should, can we do a policy committee meeting then before next board meeting it'll just be to discuss that one policy?
So what if we did the policy review process at the policy meeting? And then we can take something off of the
My
meeting.
only question is, having discussed it with you, I feel like you wanted to talk to the whole board about how we do policies, and possibly not the whole board would be at that meeting.
I'm open, but if we did it at the policy committee meeting, we could bring it back to the whole board in a shorter, condensed version with a recommendation.
That's fine.
It doesn't
That's
matter to
fine.
me, but whatever the rest of the board
I
wants.
think a lot of us are planning on going to the next policy committee because to have our
Of the next
Discuss it.
policy that we pulled. So I
All right. So that'll be in April. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll do a policy committee meeting April 12th. Good? And we'll talk about both those things. Okay, good. All right, that's it.
Can I have wrestling cake?
I'm not sure if we're gonna have
Just
wrestling
gonna have cake every week.
But, somewhere in there also will be the hire of a new assistant principal for a park. We just haven't settled on a date yet. May 3rd? Okay. So cake in May 3rd.
Okay. So we have a long list of stuff to work with. Next is public comment. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
Yes, we do. Ms. Gordon?
Okay. I'm Rebecca Gordon, the mom of a D46 7th grade student, a mom of a Grays Lake Central sophomore who went her entire education through D46 as well. And I think as Now, I know you're discussing policy, not tonight, but in the future, I want to draw your attention back to a district policy for gifted or high ability students. Policy number 6:130, I know how to say that now, states that our district has such a program. So my understanding is that our D46 gifted program was eradicated with budget cuts probably over about 20 years ago. And many of our neighboring districts have such programs. Now, our high ability students, they don't have just a set of unique learning abilities, but they often have their own unique set of learning challenges. Many of them have secondary and tertiary learning issues like ADHD, autism spectrum disorders, or asynchronous development, some of which are complicated or misdiagnosed by inappropriate learning environments. So these students, these students do not learn differently because of a misperceived intellectual superiority, but because of their neurodivergence, it's not just a matter of IQ. These students simply learn differently. So I feel that our children are receiving some of the best public education through D46. And yet, the best public education isn't adequate when these students should not be told that they need to hang on until they get to high school for differentiated educational opportunities, especially as extra advanced math and advanced ELA classes have been removed from Frederick and GMS. So I would encourage renewed attention, particularly as curriculum and equity are a focus. A lot of this dovetails with exactly what you all have talked about tonight. I would encourage maybe an extra program or training in teaching strategies for these students to address an educational equity issue for this neglected subset of high ability student learners in our district. So as you look at your policies, I really want to encourage you to look at these kids. They are not privileged, but they are really struggling to be special learners within our district as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, we do not have a need to go into closed session tonight. Good thing we got your review done already. All right, so I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
LaCroix,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Nay, aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Braden.
Aye.
You two picked the wrong meeting to come to.